Alpenstein. Empress Estella is thinking about her secret. It turns out she has a middle name, Estin. The Empress was born into the Arthur bloodline, which began in conjunction with the Empire. Therefore, the Arthur family is as strong as the Marquises with many lands and great authority. Over time, the family began to fade away. When Estella's great-grandfather died, their family lost all land, money, and title. Everyone born into the Arthur family was demoted to Baron. The only thing Estella's great-grandfather was able to keep was his fencing skills. The Arthur family should have disappeared, but Estella's father, Raskan, gave his life to learning the art of swordsmanship. Raskan was recognized for his amazing talent and was appointed captain of the Imperial Guard. Afterward, he wanted to teach his child to wield a sword. The only thing Arthur's clan can be proud of now is their swordsmanship. The Empire recognized it as a worthwhile talent. Despite the gender of the people, swordsmanship has never been lacking. Therefore, when Estella had free time, her father taught her swordsmanship skills on the side of the training field. Her father never gave in, so the young empress always had to admit defeat. The girl had a warm relationship with her father, so she thought it would always be like that. But when the girl was 18 years old, he died. All that was left to the young empress was a small house and the swordsmanship of the Arthur family. In Alpenstein, the only way for a single girl to survive was to work as a servant, cook, or seamstress. But the girl knew too little and had too few skills to work in one of these places. The girl's only option turned out to be the night school, so she decided to go there after passing the night entrance exam. This idea came to the girl after the discovery she made some time ago when she reported her father's death. Realizing that the young empress doesn't have a twin, it didn't add up that there was another name in the family register. It's the name of a guy who was born at the same time as Estella, as if her father knew this could happen. Raskan never took his daughter to various social events, did not introduce her to the nobility. The young empress did not even talk to neighbors, because she was not particularly sociable. So even if she lived as a boy, no one would realize it. The girl realized that by living under the name Estin, she will get a great salary by becoming a knight. The girl decides to take this desperate step. Cutting off her hair, she realizes she won't give up even if she can't pass the entrance exam. Estella Arthur realizes that she now has a different name, Astin Arthur. The girl tries to come to terms with the fact that now she has a different life. She is now in the role of Estin. Spring. It was time for the capital's entrance exam. Estin's first opponent is the capital's knight from the defense squad, Sir Calland. Calland glares at Estin, saying that he is too low for battle. Estin realizes that all he has to do is defeat the young man across from him and go a little over the threshold so that no one will guess. In just a moment, the duel ended with Estin's victory, which was met with cheers and applause from the crowd watching. Based on what Estin learned in the first battle, it was not difficult to win the second battle peacefully. The problems arose in the third fight. Estin's opponent wanted him to show him his true skills and abilities, but Estin responded that this was his limit. Estin's opponent was Tissen Solidian, the third son of the Marquis of Caden. Tissen was known for being called gifted with a sword since he was a child. Estin didn't want to show his opponent his true skills. Tyson had knocked Estin to the ground and won, which Estin was glad of, for only his opponent realized that the boy had fought half-heartedly. The next test was a written exam. Estin realized that he should not stand out. So he didn't try as hard as he could in all the following exams. Even in horseback riding, he was a little behind the others. The exam was over, and a few days later, Estin was jubilant that he had passed. Now he got to be Estin, getting a paycheck while working as a knight. Estella realized that now she could not worry about money and live happily. The girl was so happy that she decided to get drunk, crossing the path of the scary man. The girl was able to join the Kiande without drawing attention to herself. The older man congratulated Estin, asking who he was to Raskan, to which the young knight told the man that Raskan was his father. Surprised, the man said that he knew Estin's father, and then added that he didn't see the young man as talented as his father. The man then told Estin not to worry, for he would definitely become a great knight. The young man told the man that he was not sad about it, for the Kiande was the closest thing to a citizen of the town. To which the man replied that the young man had overly mature thoughts, just like his father, Raskan. Thus, Estella became part of the Kiandi Knights as Estin Arthur and would receive the title of baronet that same year. The girl was going about her daily Kiande routine as always, living a good, simple life. Another knight approached Estin, calling the young man lazy Sir Estin. The latter decided to clarify if this was the year Estin should get married. After handing the box of cookies to Estin, the man asked the young man if everything was okay, which Estin did not understand. Then the man said that Estin had something wrong with his debts, his face, his body, to which Estin said that he had no debts. Then the man touched the young man's head, saying that girls nowadays like boys with small heads. Realizing that Sir Estin looked very well, the man asked the young man if he had received letters of introduction from rich daughters. To his colleague's words, Estin replied that he was not interested in getting married as a Kiande knight. Suddenly, a man burst into the room, loudly announcing that they have received a request for military support. The request was sent because a bear was spotted in the forest area. And the man also said that the Medical Academy sophomores were heading into the woods to gather medicinal herbs for class, at which time a bear appeared in the woods. Estin decided to head into the woods to find the students, asking the man to keep an eye on the office. While packing for the forest, Estin remembered all about bears, Edward Bear's monsters that only live in the Edward Forest. According to legends, when Alpenstein was invader territory, the only witch in the forest was 9 years old. The witch was young, but was the ruler of the remaining territories to protect her lands. So she created the Edward Bear, for in her opinion, bears were the most feared creatures. He wasn't ordinary or plush, he was a monster, though the witch's magic didn't contain cruelty and malice. Estin ordered the rest of the knights to hurry, or the students would be in danger. Jumping on his horse, Estin was about to ride away faster, but he was stopped by a voice. It was Tison Sir Lydian, the same guy who had noticed that Estin was holding back in the entrance exams 3 years ago. Tison had gotten the top title, living up to his nickname. The boy was assigned to the imperial palace, so Estin thought he would never see Tison again. When Tison heard about the bear, he asked Estin to go together. The young man reluctantly agreed to go with Tison. It turns out that Tison, having learned about the young man's title, began to pester him with his questions about what Estin forgot from the commoners, why he does not want to develop, why he does not want to increase his influence in society. In addition to that, Tison asked Estin to fight again to see how much their skills had changed. Tyson specifically decided to go along with Estin to practice and see the young man's abilities for real. Estin realized that he might be exposed because of the guy's curiosity, so he wanted to keep his distance. When they got to the place where the bear was, they had a conversation about whether Tyson had seen the monster before, to which Tyson replied that he hadn't. Estin didn't understand how a man of that level hadn't fought an Edwardian bear yet. Tyson had told the boy that he wanted to become a knight who could take down any monster in Alpenstein, and their situation was a good chance for him. Estin realizes that the dark-haired boy is going to let his guard down and just play with a monster he's seeing for the first time. Estin learns that Tyson fought a goblin he encountered at training camp 2 years before the entrance exams. The dark-haired guy also learned that Estin would be fighting the monster he had seen 4 years ago. Tyson was very surprised, since the blonde-haired guy was quite strong in battle, to which Estin replied that he had trained with his father for 15 years. The dark-haired boy was eager to know more about Estin's childhood, so he wanted to offer to meet him the next weekend. But suddenly one of the knights called out to Estin, and they had to postpone the conversation. It turned out that the knights were just gambling, betting most of their savings on the sire. Therefore, approaching the crowd, the latter demanded a share. Tyson could not understand why Estin's men were betting on him. Estin then decides to mess with the dark-haired guy, saying that his men shut up as soon as Tyson approaches. Afterward, Estin tells Tyson that he wants to see him loosen up. Despite spending a lot of time with his men, Estin is constantly nervous. A captain runs up to Sir Estin, telling him that they have blocked off all the paths, so they will need to find the Medical Academy students, the 2 teachers, and the women who went to pick mushrooms. To which Sir Estin says that the women often go mushroom picking, so they know how to avoid bears. The blonde-haired boy learns that the knights have also requested help from the Security and Defense Department, but they can only arrive in 6 hours. Tyson is extremely surprised that help would have to wait 6 hours. Not understanding, Estin asks the guy why he's still there, to which Tyson replies that he wants to go with the young man. Upon recognizing Tyson's Sir Lydian, the knights look at him with admiration, realizing that he is from the imperial palace, and talk about how lazy Estin is. The young man was extremely displeased, for everyone had forgotten about the bear, surrounding Tyson to learn more about him. After that, Tyson, along with Estin, headed over to the bear. On the way, Estin decides to see if Tyson knows how to fight the bear, to which the guy replies that the core is right in the middle of the belly button. Realizing that Tyson knows the theory, Estin relaxes a little. After all, people often get confused. Thinking it's a regular bear, people try to slit its throat or stab it through the heart. It's easy to make a mistake. The monsters created by the trees will only die if their magical cores are destroyed. Realizing that they have no definite path, the guys decide to go forward. But at some point, everything goes wrong. Estella had no idea that in this forest her fate would change again. A red-haired man pulls a girl with dark hair behind him. Not understanding, she asks the man, "Cleo, what is going on?" The guy only looks at the girl with his bright green eyes, making her shut up. After a while, the girl starts screaming again, not realizing what she has done. She apologizes, still not understanding why. Cleo, however, tells her that they will soon find out how honest the girl is. The girl starts crying, asking the guy to explain to her what she did wrong, asking him to give her another chance. The guy freezes, asking the girl to look forward. When she sees the trees, the girl is overcome with fear. The boy then orders her to go towards them. A girl named Inas refuses to go near the trees, begging Cleo not to. Even though he promises to protect her, she won't even stand next to him. Then the guy throws her up against a tree. The girl thought the tree said hello to her, so the boy told her. It turns out that these trees, Kealalkan, were planted near the homes of witches. They would attack approaching enemies, and here's a tree greeting a girl. Inas tries to justify herself by saying it wasn't her, but as much as Cleo doesn't want to believe her, he pulls out his sword, swinging it at the young lady. After that, the trees stretched out its branches, preventing it from touching Inas. The tree tried in every way to protect her. Taking the girl with its branches, it began to draw the lady to itself, saying that it would protect her. The tree, pulling the girl to itself, begins to attack Cleo, saying it will protect her even if it becomes ash. Inas didn't want to stay in the tree's hands, so she started to reach for the guy. The boy kills the girl, preventing the tree from reacting. The girl dies, and Cleo goes to the roots of the tree, about to turn it to ash by stabbing the roots with his sword. The guy doesn't understand how he's supposed to clean up the mess if he can't defeat the tree. Not knowing where this will lead, the boy makes a decision. At this time, Estin and Tyson are still walking through the forest, realizing that vigilance must never be lost since the Edward bear has appeared. Estin comes to this forest all the time. Due to the appearance of an Edwardian bear, the lad has been visiting the forest for the past 4 years. Tyson learns that during his vacation, the young man either reads books, eats, or walks. After Tyson learns about Estin's preferences, he decides to invite him over for a weekend meal. The next second, the first Edwardian bear appears from behind the boys, which Tyson quickly kills. Estin reminds the young man that there can be about 300 bears on the bark of a single tree. Therefore, any path the boys take will lead them to the bears. The young men then come across a large number of bears, which they deal with. As Estin kills the bears, a thought occurs to Tyson, which is interrupted by a bear standing behind the boy's back. Estin kills this bear, telling the young man not to get distracted and to focus on the battle. After killing most of the bears, the boys hear a scream. Estin tells Tyson to stay put while Estin goes to check, since he knows this forest better than Tyson. Going to the scream that Estin heard, he comes across Cleo and a murdered Inas. Cleo feels guilty towards the girl, for he himself led her to the place that caused her death. Not understanding what is happening, Estin asks what it is, turning to the red-haired man. Realizing that the man killed the girl, the young man draws his sword. Cleo talks about hearing the sounds of footsteps and that Estin is very unlucky. After getting a better look at Cleo, Estella realizes that he is the most handsome she has ever seen while living in Estin's role. Cleo doesn't want any extra witnesses, so he decides to attack the young man. Estin stops the man from injuring himself, and now they are sword fighting. The red-haired man notices the squad uniform on the young man, so he tells him that the security squad should stay away if they don't want to embarrass their squad. Scoffing, Cleo asks the young man about his abilities. Enraged, Estin fights much harder. Cleo realizes that the young man is still weak, so he decides to hit harder to end their fight quickly. The man throws Estin back a little further. Estin realizes that the red-haired man is stronger, and there is nowhere to wait for help. Estin resigns himself to the fact that he will probably get hit first. Estella was content with life in the security department, for she never wanted to be a knight, risking her life. But she's never met a man so strong. Her interest is piqued. Now for the first time, Estin wants to defeat a man so badly. So now Estella will do her best. The girl runs to the attack, having her sword ready. Cleo thinks the young man is in too much of a hurry. Realizing that Estin is a swordsman of the Arthur family, the man stops the young man's sword with his hand, asking the lad his name. Not understanding what the red-haired man is doing, Estin asks what he is up to. Cleo replies to the boy that he is going to kill or pardon the young man. Estella tells the man that her name is Estin. The red-haired man asks the knight if he wants to know his name, the name of the murderer. Frightened, the boy replies that he is not interested in the name. An Edwardian bear appears behind Estin's back, and they realize that the man and Estin need to deal with the monster first before getting acquainted. Estin makes quick work of the bear, which the man clearly doesn't like. Cleo reminds the young man that he could kill Estin at any moment. Estella realizes that she has let her guard down, after which she tells Cleo that he seems to understand the language of monsters better. The realization comes to Estin that new monsters will appear right away. As it happens, the Edwardian bears appear at the side. Fighting the bears, they decide to accept a temporary truce. Cleo adds to keep the young man on his guard, naming Estin as a knight of the security department. During the battle with the bears, Tisson runs up, shouting Estin's name cheerfully. Estin hopes that now they can capture the red-haired boy. However, he decides to leave, saying that Estin now has reinforcements. Cleo leaves, saying that he has not seen any Arthurian swordsman for a long time. Tyson asks Estin about the man, but he only saw the red-haired man's back. All the young man replies to the boy's words is that they need to deal with the bears. Estin and his men kill a total of 7 Edwardian bears and rescue the students of the academy, but Estin's work doesn't end there. When he found the girl's corpse under a pile of dead Edwardian bears, he realized that the girl was a noblewoman. The dress made of expensive imported fabric, the jewelry with rare stones, all of it pointed to that. Estin thought about what would have happened if he had come sooner. The red-haired boy wore a robe, but he looked like a nobleman, and his gaze was quite piercing. Estin promises himself that he will find the man. It just takes time. Estin asks an older man to solve the case, but the murdered girl is the daughter of Viscount Maynard of the Maynard family. Since this is a political matter, the man suggests that the matter be handed over to the knights of the Imperial Palace, because once the young man gets involved in this story, it will be difficult for the young man to live a normal life. The man asks the young man if he really wants to intervene, to which the young man replies that he has changed his mind, for he will not be able to handle it. Inas was the Crown Prince's fiancé, and thus had an important role in Alpenstein. None of Emperor Elchin's children had a normal family. Elchin thought that you can only play your part if you have a family, and whoever wants to be emperor must marry. The emperor could not watch his children, so he issued a decree, after which, according to Elchin, every emperor of Alpenstein must be married. The Crown Prince, Cleo Vangel Alpenstein, the current ruler. The reason he is still the Crown Prince is that at 28 years old, he is still unmarried. The Crown Prince is a handsome man with reddish hair and green eyes. Everyone knows about him. Estella realized that because she hadn't heard these rumors, she couldn't identify him. Although she felt sorry for the murdered girl, Estella didn't want any unnecessary trouble. Estin asked his colleague to tell him the rumors about the Crown Prince's fiancée. Despite the fact that Estin would never ask about such a thing, because he is more interested in Leopold's bakery desserts, he, blackmailing a colleague, got his way by learning that he had changed 6 brides within 5 years. 3 of them left, 2 were killed, and 1 died of disease. All 6 brides ended very badly. 1 of the 3 brides committed suicide. 4 of the 6 died. The daughter of Estin's co-worker says a curse is to blame. A witch who was enchanted by the crown prince's beauty cursed his bride so he couldn't marry, and now the story is considered a romantic fairy tale for children. Estin remarks that his colleague likes fairy tales, to which he replies that fairy tales are just fairy tales, and the main culprit in all this is Empress Alpenstein. After all, she is Empress Albina, and the crown prince is not her son. The people of Alpenstein learn of Prince Cleo's disappearance. The imperial family has not been able to find him. Grief-stricken, the emperor later learns of the suicide of Her Majesty Elarissa. As time passes, most rumours of the prince's disappearance and the empress's suicide evaporate with the fallen autumn leaves. Emperor Bertin, who had no heir, married Empress Albina, who bore him 4 children. Cleo Vangel was considered a prince who died young, and seemed to have finally faded into oblivion. 20 years later, a rumour spread among the nobility, and the name of the missing prince has resurfaced again. The rumour was that a soldier named Leo in the kingdom of Ilta was an exact replica of Her Majesty. But there was no proof that the rumours were true. The emperor wanted to take a look at this young man before his illness finally broke him. Asking a servant to bring the man to the palace, the servant unhesitatingly carried out his errand. Then the doors opened, and the moment the main character of the rumours appeared, all sorts of tests proved that he was the very prince. Despite bearing a striking resemblance to the late empress, and convincing people that the disappeared prince had returned, Leo remembered nothing of the time when he was a prince. The various physical features that were on Leo's body matched those of the prince. In addition, there was strong evidence that he was descended from the imperial family of Alpenstein, namely, the sainthood of the goddess Severina. It was only passed down in the Alpenstein imperial family, and the powers of holiness and purification were found in Leo's blood. The temple ruled that the mercenary Leo was the direct heir of the imperial family. The imperial family gladly accepted Cleo, who returned 20 years later in perfect health, except for Empress Albina and her children. Cleo's return greatly frightened Albina's children. She told them not to worry. After all, a person who lived his entire life as a mercenary cannot know anything about the imperial family, and he would soon show his incompetence. But the prediction of the empress was not destined to come true. Cleo in an instant amazed the political world with his innate grace and ability. A year after his return to the palace, he was declared crown prince. Shortly after Prince Cleo's blessing, the emperor passed away. Then the empress decided to prevent the crown prince from ascending to the throne. The empress decided to prevent the crown prince from marrying, because the law of the imperial family stated that only married men could take the throne. Every time a prince is betrothed, the bride is eliminated. Even the nobles who previously fought to make their daughter an empress are now avoiding the topic in every way possible. Estin's colleague said that he would have similarly refused to send his daughter to such a place, although the colleague himself hoped that the next bride would be fine. The only thing Estin didn't understand was why Cleo killed his fiancée in the forest. Estin went for a walk around the city, realizing that he needed to live as if nothing had happened and stay out of politics. When he reached the sweet store, he ordered a castella, a madeleine, and macaroons. After asking the sales clerk if they had a chiffon cake, he decided to buy one. At that moment, a man's voice was heard behind his back, suggesting that he get a chocolate cream Napoleon. Estin immediately realized whose voice it was. Taking the hilt of his sword, he wanted to pretend he didn't know the man. Then Estin was about to say something to the man, but the man interrupted him by saying that the chocolate Napoleon was the best thing they made in Leopold. Even though he doesn't really like sweets, Cleo knew that this cake was very good. Estin continued talking though. After apologizing, he turned to His Highness, to which he asked him not to reveal it when he was undercover. The young man was surprised that Claudio, undercover, had not even pulled his hood up. Estella realized, as she got a better look at the man, that he was very handsome indeed, and she couldn't help but admit it. If Estine had been Estella, she would have known no grief, but now she was a witness to a murder. Realizing that her lifespan was now shortened by meeting Sir Freuden, she thought she should have sent Tyson to him. Not understanding what Estin was muttering, the man decided to inquire about what the night had made up. Realizing that it was impossible to regret what he had done earlier, Estin decided to talk to Cleo as little as possible. After which he said that in this guise, His Highness would be able to quietly find out. Leo said he didn't need to be so formal and that Estin could address him by his first name. Cleo questioned the young man about the Napoleon, saying that between the thin cakes, which broke just by pressing a fork, was a layer of chocolate that melted in the mouth as soon as it touched the tongue. And the cherry on the cake is the delicate custard. But Leopold doesn't like desserts that require a lot of attention, so Napoleon is probably no longer sold in this diner. Estin, seduced by the story of this dessert, had imagined many things that no longer made sense because the dessert was gone. Claw replied to the knight's words that he simply didn't have enough power and turned to the saleswoman and took the bag of freshly baked Napoleon. The sales clerk, Miss Helena, said that good acquaintances were a powerful force and that her husband had been making dessert all morning, talking about His Highness. When Estella heard of the lemon pudding, she was quite taken aback, for she had never tasted it before, when His Majesty can afford this dessert any time he wants. The girl decided to become influential, just so that she could order whatever she wanted, just like Leo. After Leo took the order, he suggested Estin to walk and talk quietly together. The young man felt as if Leo had known him for about 10 years, to which the man replied that it was the result of a 3-day inspection. Shocked, Estin didn't understand how Leo could be so proud. Claude put the wig on his head and asked him once more if he wanted to go for a walk together. Estin gloomed, for he had not expected to see such a poor disguise, but he agreed to go for a walk. During the walk, Estella asked where they were going, and was shocked when she found out that they were going to Leo's house, or rather to the palace, where no one was present. But Leo offered another option, to go to his hideout, which Estin would not like. At the man's words, the young man only asked him to tell him what was so terrible about the shelter, and to give him a bag of desserts in exchange for his silence. Leo only said that Estin had no ambition at all. After all, he is willing to give up the opportunity to have a private meeting with the most powerful man in Alpenstein in exchange for desserts. The boy said this exchange for silence signified his gallantry. Cleo said he would consider Estin gallant if he would only keep silent without reward, saying that his father had done so. Besides, Estin had already told Sir Freuden what he had seen that day, so the opportunity to keep silent was lost. Estin could not believe that the man already knew that the young man had told Sir Freuden what had happened in the forest, and he could not understand how he knew about it. Now the boy was wondering how far Leo would go. When they arrived at the house, they sat down at the table, placing all the desserts they had bought on it. Leo held out a lemon pudding to Estienne, suggesting that he eat it, but the young man asked why Claude didn't want to eat it, and gave it to him. Leo, on the other hand, said he could eat it at any time. Even after coming to his house, Estella couldn't understand why he killed his fiancée, nor did she understand which of His Highness's personalities was the real one. For His Majesty was aiming his sword at all of Estella's vital points, and the look the man threw at the young man was full of murderous lust. Anyone would have realized that he was going to kill Estin right on the spot. So Estella decided to be even more vigilant, even if he was being nice. When she tasted the lemon pudding, Estella immediately forgot her suspicions. The pudding was too delicious not to emphasize eating it. Realizing that Estin liked the pudding, Leo offered him another dessert, saying that the young man had a big appetite. After Estin had finished with the pudding, Cleo suggested they get down to business. He then asked the guy if he had an older twin sister, to which Estin replied that he did. Leo also said that her name is Estella, and she looks exactly like Estin. And also Cleo asked where the girl is now. The young man told the man that his father was against his sister's relationship with the merchant from Raouli, so they ran away together at night. After hearing that, Cleo guessed that no one knew where she was now, or who she had married, saying it with a smirk. Then the young man replied that it was a pretty true story to tell people. After talking about Estin's sister, Leo suggested that the young man live as Estella for 5 years. Estin was shocked, because he would have to wear women's clothes and hide 2 of his secrets already. Cleo had suggested it for the reason that he had recently lost his fiancée. The The young man corrected the man by saying that Cleo himself had killed her, after which Leo promised to tell Estin about it. It turns out that Leo has no way to stop the rumors of assassinations. Even though he has a strong influence on the imperial army, it doesn't work on the nobles. Therefore, they will be forced to turn a blind eye to Empress Albina's actions. So His Majesty wanted to marry a girl from a noble family in the countryside who has no ties to the capital. But it turns out that most families are unable to protect their daughters. So he needs a hereditary princess who is not affiliated with either side. And while the engagement process is underway so she can protect herself, Cleo says he wants Estin as crown princess. Arriving in shock, Estin says it's too dangerous. To which Cleo said he would teach Estin how to survive in the castle, as he himself had survived for 6 years. Estin is perfect for the role. His slender body, feminine face, and high-pitched voice are all he needs to deceive. Estin agrees, realizing she has nothing to lose. But in her heart she is angry because she has worked hard to become a knight and live in comfort. Leo also promises that in 5 years all of Estin's dreams will come true, but Estin says that his dream is to be a Kiande knight, and to receive a salary until he retires and then live a comfortable life. Leo is surprised that Estin has no intention of moving up the ladder, after which he calls him a lazy ass with zero ambition and no lust for power, and Estin confirms his words by saying that in the order he is called Lazy Sir Estin. Not understanding how this can be so, His Majesty is enraged. He says he will show what he can do, because he is the most powerful man in the Empire, scaring Estella. Afterwards, Leo says that the 5-year contract includes a monthly payment of 3 million gold pieces. If Estin saves 500,000 a month, in 5 years he will have 30 million and a free castle. Realizing how much that is, Estin realizes that he can eat desserts every day at the country house and do whatever he wants for the rest of his life. But before that, the young man learns why His Majesty is paying such a large sum. Leo replies that the sum includes a dangerous life in the castle. And also, Cleo lures the young man with the fact that Leopold used to be an assistant chef in the castle, and now the cook is even better, and promising that the man will appoint another equally experienced cook as Estin's personal chef. Leo leaves the boy, leaving him alone with his thoughts. The young man asks Leo to answer one last question. Now the lad learns that Lady Maynard was a witch. Estin wonders if it's possible that the monster was reborn into a noble society lady. Even if she was human, the crown prince would still kill her without hesitation. Cleo, Ileta's former mercenary, must have taken the lives of a huge number of people. He wouldn't mind getting blood on his hands again. Still, calling His Highness a murderer is not acceptable. Leo, leader of the Empire, the people would call it an execution, not a murder. And Estella could be next on the scaffold. Estin twitches fearfully, which is noticed by his colleague. The man decides to find out if the young man is all right. Then the young man says that he has a difficult choice to make. Estin tells us that he has been offered a difficult job for a certain period of time with a high salary. It includes a fee for possible risks. Estin has doubts about whether he should stay in his job and live peacefully or take the risk. A colleague asks how much Estin will be paid for his work. When he hears that the salary is about 3 million gold pieces, all the knights sitting nearby run up, not understanding what they can think about with such a salary. Estin says he is happy with this life, even though it is a small salary. Then his colleagues say that with 3 million gold pieces, he can live without needing anything. Then one of his colleagues gives his resignation. He then says that he is ready to be his butler, and that he will do his best to be Leo's faithful servant. Estin meets Leo again at the same place where he ate dessert last time. Now, Cleo is already wearing a different mask, which Estin doesn't like either. Leo decides to take off the mask, because it is just the two of them. The man can't wait to hear the young man's answer to his proposal. Estin wants to ask 2 questions before announcing his answer, and also asks to take note of one condition he has. Leo asks to say the condition first before agreeing. Estin then asks Leo to give him the right to privacy in the future. The man says that the young man can take it easy since no one will accuse him, but that's not what Estin had in mind. Since she had already agreed to the deal, she had a choice to make. She had to choose whether to be Estella or Estin. She's going to pretend to be a woman, so she doesn't know if it wouldn't be easier to reveal her real identity. But she changes her mind, because she believes that in this way she will show him her weakness, and he will be able to use it against the girl. Next to Leo, Estella needs to be Estin, and if her secret is revealed, she will use the inviolability of personality. Estin asks Leo for forgiveness if he commits something in the future, regardless of the severity of the crime, realizing that now is not the time for Estella's return. The man, however, replies that the young man is asking for a lot. So Cleo decides to ask if Estin has killed someone or is about to commit treason, to which Estin replies that he is not asking for something so serious. The man agrees, going to draw up a contract. Such a quick agreement frightened the young man a little, so he decided to ask about it. The man said that in any case their fate would be tied. Leo Estin would follow him when he died. If the people find out who Estella Leo really is, it will be the end. They are deceiving the people and going against the will of the past emperor. Now Estin decides to ask his first question, for he doesn't understand why Cleo believes him. The man says he has a good reason for this. He watched the young man, the way he had protected their secret for 10 days. Leo realized that there wasn't an ounce of greed in Estin, and that he was extremely cautious. Cleo said that the young man could have given this information to Empress Albina and received a sum even greater than what he had been promised. The young man said that he did not recognize Leo as the crown prince, so he doubted that such a thing was possible. Leo was a little disappointed, because he thought he was quite handsome. After the man's words, Estin felt embarrassed, so he said he would accept any punishment. But Cleo said it was only a joke that proves once again that the young man has no need of power or elevation of title. And Leo added that Sir Freuden had assured His Majesty that lazy Sir Estin, the young man's second name. Cleo said it was that trait that reminded him of Sir Raskan. The man knew the young man's father, who was completely devoid of any lust for power. When Leo had offered Raskan a title of nobility, he had refused, asking only for an increase in salary. The man decided not to recall the old days, saying only that no one else had done the job better than Estin, a lineage with a worthy history that befits the imperial family. And Estella, who's never been out in public. Estin looks exactly like Estella, besides possessing excellent swordsmanship skills. And if Estin joins him, Leo's plan will succeed, and he will become emperor. Estin doesn't understand what all this masquerade is for, since His Majesty could just hire a talented mercenary. But Cleo said it was much safer to have a pure-blooded member of the Arthur family do it. And this job is very responsible, because you have to be on guard, so that people don't find out Estin's weaknesses and use them against him. Leo told the young man not to worry about women's things. Cleo will get the best people to take care of the makeup and clothes. Estin decides to ask the second question: what will His Majesty do with the heirs? The man says he can adopt one, then realizes that they need to deal with problems as they come, and now it's time to start acting on the plan. First, they need to make it appear that Estin and Lady Estella are living together. Since the young man does not need to go to the Chiandi every day, he needs to allocate his time properly and make sure to show people that Estella is at home. He must convince them that she was staying with distant relatives and had not run away. Cleo, on the other hand, will help with the cover. Before the engagement, Leo gives Estin the title of Count and sends him to the village. In the future, this will help people forget Estin's existence, and if Estella says that she agreed to the marriage for the sake of restoring the family name, no one will judge her. After the deal was done, Estin demanded a contract that spelled out his immunity. The man reminded Estin that their fates were tied, and Estin said it was only for 5 years. The boy decided to save up some gold to guarantee himself a comfortable future. The man took out the desserts he had brought with him from the main castle, the Crown Prince's castle, and the royal villa. Estin tasted the dessert, after which he swore eternal loyalty to His Highness. The man couldn't believe he had gained the young man's loyalty through just one cake, saying it was nice. Seeing that the young man had soiled his face in the brownie, Leo decided to wipe away the crumbs, saying that for him, meeting Estin in the Edward Forest had been a real blessing. the embarrassed young man asked His Highness to step aside to taste the rest of the pastries. After Estin's request, Leo stepped back, asking if everything was okay, for the young man's face was very red. The boy replied that he was fine, even though he was still embarrassed by the situation. Estella could not sleep. She could not even remember the taste of the last cake, for she was very nervous and could not feel anything. But His Majesty's words made her happy. She tried to stop thinking about him. Sam decided that he had only said them because he now had a pawn to use, and she has to stop focusing on that to stay alive. Putting on her dress, the girl couldn't remember the last time she had done that. Though the hat hid her short hair, she realized she needed a wig. People began to break into Sir Estin's house. The girl clattered about, asking how a knight could sleep at this hour, and also saying that a knight needs to get up on time for his job, even if he's lazy. That girl, Delin. Delin was a good acquaintance of Estin's. She talked to him more often than anyone else, so if Estella could fool her, it wouldn't be hard to fool the others. Peeking out from behind the door, Estella told the girl that Estin had left early in the morning. Tyson appeared outside the door, thinking that this girl, Sir Estin. Confused, the girl only asked about who this young man was. She didn't expect to meet him here at all. The girl couldn't understand what was wrong. Tyson could see the contempt in her face, but she didn't think he would recognize Estin in her so immediately. Delin, standing next to the man, said she remembered the young man's sister. Whereupon Delin asked the girl if she was the same Estella. Estella replied that it was her, and that Estin had told her about Delin many times. Delin then explained to Tyson that he had told her many times about his twin sister, who lived with distant relatives. Estella said she had just gotten back yesterday. Delin wondered where Estin himself was, responding by hearing that he had left early. He had urgent business to attend to. Delin then said she was starting to worry. It seemed to her that he had decided to give up his job at the Kiande and decided to become a bum, since he slept so sweetly. Estella said that no matter how lazy he was, he certainly wouldn't do that. Tyson also decided to keep the conversation going. He introduced himself to Estin's sister and told her that they were supposed to meet today, but he didn't come to the office. Afterwards, the young man remembered that he had never introduced himself. He said his name was Tyson Sir Lydian, one of the king's knights, and a friend of Sir Estin. Estella did not realize when she had promised the young man to meet him, and when they had managed to become friends. The young man asked if Sir Estin had said anything about him, to which the girl replied that it was the first time she had heard of him. Estella was about to leave on business, for there was hardly anything in the house. Delin went to do the laundry and tidy up the girl's clothes. Tyson offered to escort Lady Arthur to the main street. The girl refuses Sir Tyson, saying that she cannot go shopping with a stranger. Sir Tyson ran to find a carriage for the young lady, while Cleor sat at the window of one and building. Said Sir Lydian was bewitched by Estella's beautiful face that he did not even recognize Estienne. Asked what His Highness was doing here, he said he wanted to take a look at his bride-to-be and escort her if she messed up. Leo also said that Estella should work on her speech. She must speak politely and with a smile, as befits a knight's daughter. Estella says that the man is not so polite for answering her question like that. The man says he bought all the houses in the neighborhood, so now they belong to the girl. He explained that the lady's house must be protected at all times. The girl said it would be better if he behaved as usual. Cleor thanked the girl for her understanding. Cleor offered the lady to go together, but she was waiting for a carriage. The man thought she wanted to go with him in the carriage, but she refused. Then he held out his hand and gallantly offered to accompany her. On the way, the man noticed that the lady had small hands and asked her if it was difficult for her to hold a large sword. The girl replied that she was a little uncomfortable. The girl is unaware of the guy's intentions, so she asks to go shopping first, but he says he came specifically to go shopping with her at the best stores with the Empire's money. On the carriage, they go to the residential area of the rental family. The girl realizes that they are not on the main street, so the young man says that before that, he needs to introduce Estella to one person. Upon entering the building, they are greeted by a woman with reddish-brown hair and a man already familiar to Estella. The woman introduced herself as Count Bartholomew's wife, Elendia, and the man as Sir Freuden. Estella tries to justify herself to Freuden, saying he had no choice, but the man says that Estin is very much like a lady, and so His Highness's plan will definitely work. Elendia says that Estella can become a real lady, but only if she doesn't forget about makeup and etiquette. Leo confirms the woman's words, saying that it was indeed an excellent choice. His Majesty calls Freuden over so that Estin won't worry so much. And also His Majesty wants Baron Scon's wife to help Estin too, as they are the same age, so they will easily find common ground. The woman calls Estella to her to transform the girl's appearance. Elendia says that life as a girl is clearly unaccustomed to Estin, but the woman will do what she can to help. So she asks Estin to be mindful of his situation. Miss Estella has not had the opportunity to appear in high society before, but she comes from a ruined but still noble family. Estin says that because of this, many mistakes can be overlooked. Estin says that the authority of the Arthur family is high enough to rise to the status of empress. Elendia asks the young man to be extremely careful not to reveal his true identity. Having agreed, the Count's wife decides to begin preparations. She introduces Estin to a girl named Lydia, saying that from today she will be in charge of the young man's closet. Lydia bows to the girl, addressing her as Miss Arthur. Estella realizes that she is the most famous seamstress in the world. It was rumored that for a whole season there were not even 10 of her dresses. They were worth their weight in gold. Estella couldn't believe that such a famous person was now responsible for her clothes. Lydia asked the girl to come and stand next to her. Following the trends of this season, the girl took with her bright samples of current fashion trends. Lydia asks the girl to show the jewelry she likes. Lydia also asks if there are any jewelry pieces whose style, material or pattern she likes. Estella says she liked the lace. They look expensive and delicate at the same time. She also asks to make the dress light and add more ruffles and frills. The girl remembers that she forgot her sword belt. It is useless as underwear, but as an item of outerwear, it is essential. Lydia and Elendia don't like the young lady's ideas, so they ask her not to even think about it. Leo and Estella ride back in the carriage. Realizing that something is wrong with Estella, Cleo decides to inquire about what happened. Estella says that Lydia is going to do things her own way, without regard for the lady's opinion. Cleo asks the girl to give him her hand. Not realizing what he is doing, she starts to twitch and sneer, after which he notices a bow of delicate colour on her hand. The young man explained his act by the fact that Estella turned pale when the Count's wife offered her dark fabrics. The blushing girl sat in shock. Noticing this, the man decided to find out what was wrong by asking the girl if she liked the sky blue colour. He was matching the colour though. The girl said that the bow looked cute, but it was completely useless. Then His Majesty suggested tying a ribbon on his sword as a tradition, for that is what knights usually do when ladies give them a bow. Joking that the ribbon was from a handsome man, Estella said that by tradition it should be from a girl. Then the man said he would just take the ribbon back when Estin's hair grew back, adding that the wig looked realistic. Estella replied sarcastically that he was experienced at it. Saying goodbye, the girl stepped out of the carriage. She was met near her house by her friend Estina, who asked about the man who had given her a ride. To the girl's question, Estella replied that it was not her soulmate yet. In fact, Estella was embarrassed because it was the first time she had been escorted. She wondering what was wrong with her because of the ribbon. The girl realized how cute the ribbon looked. Looking in the mirror, Estella realized that there was no way she could forget that she was actually Estin. Cleo boasted complete control over all aspects of Alpenstein society, but the nobles only obeyed those with absolute power, which was the current empress. Having lost the empress's palace, having failed to deprive Isidore, second in line to the throne, of his right of succession, and having failed to bring the temple under his authority, the crown prince was still unable to gain their full favour and respect. The crown prince's palace. Cleo asks the servant if everyone is gathered. The servant tells him that Duke Offold of Archibald has brought 8 others, and Count Peddo of Caleb has brought 6. The only one, Sir Stein, arrived alone. Sir Stein, better known as Viscount Maynard. The fact that he arrived alone could only mean that his supporters had deserted him. Baron Pavlov and Sir Vadir have also arrived alone. To which His Majesty replies that they arrived only out of curiosity. Thinking about the fact that these people get too meticulous when it comes to dealing with political issues, His Majesty realizes that these people hate to shed their blood, but also can't stand to see a man win by shedding his own. Upon entering the hall, cheers were heard from everywhere, greeting His Highness. Cleor said, apologizing for making him wait so long. It was beginning to be time for another fight to begin. The aristocrats of Alpenstein can be divided into two factions. Caleb, an alliance of the nouveau riche, led by the Earl and Sir Roberts, and the Archibald Clubber group of noble families with long traditions, represented by the Duke of Offeld and the Duke of Amelan. His Majesty understood what those present wanted to ask. They wanted to hear that His Majesty had already chosen a new candidate for the place of Empress. Those present already knew it. No information could pass them by. The people were dissatisfied, for the young man had not even agreed with them. To the indignation of one of the men present, Cleor replied that there was no point in discussing it. They did not want His Majesty to marry one of the daughters of the nobility. The men's faces darkened, and one of them said that the Empress could not come from a family without a title. So he suggested Princess Ildana Raioli as a candidate. Then Leo complimented that it would cause a diplomatic incident when she died prematurely, whereupon Cleor said that his new bride was from the family of the Arthur family, so no one can call her family unworthy. Everyone knows that the former emperor, Leo's father, intended to give her father the title, and if Raskan had not refused the title, Estella would have been the daughter of an earl. His Majesty decided to give the title to Estella's brother. He said it would be a posthumous gift to Estella's father. Those present began to protest, asking His Majesty to think of the long-term consequences, for Sir Arthur was a rather unremarkable knight, and even with the title he would find it difficult to cope with all the problems. The men also wondered whether the Empress would be able to rely on a family with no power and fulfill her role with dignity. Leo said he could not afford the luxury of thinking about the long term, but he has no choice but to tell those present what must not leave the walls of the room. Cleor has told the men that this marriage will be purely arranged. Lady Arthur is eager to restore her family's name and seeks stability, and His Majesty needs a woman who is not afraid to marry His Majesty, so they came to an agreement. Those present in the room were shocked. Leo asked them to calm down, because in exchange for Estella's brother becoming an earl and getting an estate, the girl promised to divorce Cleor in 5 years. Leo didn't want to tell them, but it should at least weaken the plots against Sir Arthur. Cleor said that even though this marriage was contractual, the woman would be Empress of Alpenstein, and His Majesty expected everyone to show her proper respect. Even though each of the men had plans in mind, they smiled at Leo, saying that they would treat the young Empress with respect. Each of the men present realized that the Arthur family had long gone into the shadows, so they wouldn't be able to make much of an impact on the public. The man in the audience said that he was convinced by His Majesty's words, and even if it was a contract marriage, surely they would have an heir. So the man wondered if His Highness could get a divorce even if he had a son. Leo said he understood their concerns, but he thought it was too early to talk about his successor when His Majesty was just about to ascend the throne. The other man said that it looks as if the Count doesn't want His Majesty to have an heir. The Count replied that it was all wrong, and he didn't mean to be rude. He was only expressing his opinion. Leo interrupted the men, saying that they should focus first, to lay a solid foundation, after which His Majesty suggested that they finish. Leo said goodbye to everyone present and went to the servant, asking him to tell Count Bartholomew that His Majesty would like to speak to him. Upon seeing Sir Stein, His Highness grew sombre. Leo said that the man looked haggard, then asked if it was because of Ines. Sir said he hadn't slept at all since Ines's death. Leo said that his stepmother would be avenged, and for Stein not to worry. The man said that His Majesty's words already sounded like a comfort to him, but Ines wouldn't want all of Leo's labours to be ruined over such a small thing. Sir also said he imagined how difficult it must have been for Leo to slit the throat of a witch who looked like his fiancée. And if even the man couldn't understand His Majesty's motive, who could? Cleor said it was important for him to understand Sir Stein, so he asked that he be at his best, to which the man replied that there was no need to worry about him, for he would give everything he had so that Leo could ascend to the throne with the holy sword. Cleor knew he could hardly fully understand. To know what it was like to lose his own daughter, No matter how justified His Majesty's actions were, he would never be able to make amends with Sir Stein. Leo asked the man to rest at home, for he would need Stein's help again soon. Reminded that the man still had not forgotten Einas, Sir Stein wished His Majesty that the blessing of the Severina would come with him. Walking home, Sir Stein saw the Duchess of Rickham, who greeted the man, calling him Viscount Maynard. Estin lay on the bed, thinking about what Sir Freuden had told him. Estin doesn't need to work in the city guard, at least not until something works out. Oh, and the Crown Prince doesn't need Estin while his dress is being prepared for his high society debut. And while the mourning for Viscount Maynard's daughter is not yet over. If Leo wanted a wedding ceremony as soon as possible, Estella would be insanely busy, so she should be thankful that the only thing she has to do is lie in bed. The girl realizes that there is nothing better than idling. As they descend the stairs, Estin calls out to Delin, who is carrying a bucket of water in due course. Embarrassed, Delin asks if Estin should be watching out for the safety of the townspeople. Estin offers to help the girl, but the girl says she doesn't need it, because she wouldn't be a maid then if she asked the landlord for help, and if anyone finds out about it, she won't get any more work in this town. Afterwards, the girl says that Estina's sister is about to marry a wealthy man. Her fiancé looks like a real gentleman. The young man asks Delin to sit down for a moment. Once seated, he tells her that he is going to leave Alzen, which means that the house will soon be empty. Handing the envelope to the girl, he says it contains his letter of recommendation, Delin's last month's salary, and a service charge. The girl asks disappointedly if Estin has been promoted, to which he says that it is only because of Estella's marriage. The boy says that the girl will no longer have to come to his house from next week, but the girl says that it is only the beginning of the month, to which the boy replies that he has paid her for the whole month, because he has never lived in such a cozy and clean house before. Estin thanks the girl, and Delin tells him that he's been a terrific host. Estin lies on the bed, thinking that he's dealt with the girl, and he doesn't know when else he'll get a chance to rest like he did today, so Estella should make the most of it. Estin wakes up to a noise coming from the window. He goes to the window and starts to open it, not realizing who keeps making the noise. When he opens the window, Estin sees Cleo in front of him. Angry, Estin decides to ask why His Highness is throwing rocks at the young man's window. Leo replies to the young man that he didn't want to go out, so he decided to get Estin out of the house that way. The young man then reminds His Majesty that there are doors in the house, to which he replies that he would have met his maid that way. Leo decided to taunt Estin by reminding him that he was standing in his pyjamas in front of the Crown Prince. After changing his clothes, the young man looked out the window again. Leo then said that it looked like the young man knew it was bad manners. Estin said that His Highness is behaving rather rudely. Cleo said it was impossible to be rude when he had power. Estin asked if His Highness had a lot on his plate. Cleo replied that he had plenty of things to do, but it was so unfair when he was the only one who had them. In his head, the young man thought about how disgusting the Crown Prince was. Not understanding, Estin decides to ask about whether Leo has come to interrupt the young man's rest. Cleo says he missed the young man, to which the boy asks him to stop it. His Majesty says that Estin is being overly serious. Is it so hard for him to watch his facial expression in the presence of the Crown Prince and his future husband? The young man doesn't understand how he can be so openly mocked and not even blink an eye. Leo asks Estin to come to him, explaining that they have somewhere to be. But Cleo cannot risk going to the young man's house in the open, risking a confrontation with his maid. It would be equally suspicious if Estin left his house and went to a neighbouring house. Eventually, the young man will arrive in the form of Estella, who shouldn't be home at all. The young man asks if he has a choice, to which His Majesty replies that a good knight follows the orders of his sovereign, not to mention that Leo has a new dress for Estella. Upon seeing the dress, the girl realizes it's the kind of dress she's been dreaming of. A surprised Estella doesn't understand how he was made so quickly when it hasn't even been a week. Cleo says that anything is possible when you have money. Seeing Estin's face, the man decides he likes the dress, so he says that the young man clearly can't wait to try it on. Remembering that Estella is now pretending to be Estin, she says that she's just surprised that the dress was made faster than expected. She then asks the man to move over so she can jump over and land properly. Leo moves away, giving the girl a chance to do what she intended. The girl jumps, but not calculating the jump, lands on His Majesty's chest. Not confused, Cleo says that the guy should gain weight, because he is light as a feather. Blushing, Estin turns away, adjusting his clothes. The man touches Estella's head, saying that he knows Estin isn't too interested in self-improvement, so he asks her to take it as friendly advice from a fellow swordsman. His Majesty leaves, asking the young man to wait while he brings Countess Bartholomew. Estella thought her heart would jump out of her chest at that moment. She realized that she must not forget who she was and who the Crown Prince was. He would not hesitate to get rid of her when necessary. Now she was all alone and could only rely on herself, so a little extra caution wouldn't hurt. In any case, she liked the dress very much. There was a box next to the dress that interested the young lady, so she decided to look in it. Opening the box, the girl saw a hat and shoes that looked very beautiful. It was immediately clear how well they would go with the dress. Before, Estella could only dream about outfits of such high quality. Now, however, one of those dresses meant for her was standing right in front of her. Estella hoped that she would not have to wear all these things at once. The Countess entered the room, greeting the young lady. The girl thanked Elendia for travelling such a long way. The woman handed Estin the underwear, realising that he would have preferred to put it on himself. Afterward, the Countess said she would help him with the rest. After putting on the underwear, the woman came over to pull the corset tighter, after which Estin wore the dress. Estin said that the pads, which are supposed to visually enlarge the breasts, hardly help at all. Elendia told him not to worry, as many girls have the same figure, adding that if they pick a high-neck dress, he'll look winning. The Countess adds a shawl to the dress, prepared by Lady Lydia, and says that Estine looks much better that way. Estella really liked the exquisite pattern, because she thought about how incredible Lydia is. The girl realizes that she shouldn't give away her real self, so she replies to Elendia that the dress looks beautiful. The Countess is upset by the young man's answer. She then pulls out a box of diamond jewellery that comes as an engagement gift from the Crown Prince. Estella opened the box and saw earrings and a necklace. The only problem is that the necklace will not be visible under the shawl. The girl realizes that she will no longer have to participate in this game if she sells the necklace. The Countess says there will still be an occasion to wear the necklace, so she will keep it. Elendia asks Estella to follow her to finish the young man's makeup. The woman says that even without proper care, Estin has very delicate skin. Having finished the makeup, the woman proceeds to prepare the wig for the young man. Having put on the wig, they proceed to fix the hat, which will hide the not real hair. Looking at the finished result, the Countess says that Estin looks like a young aristocrat. Elendia says that when Estin has personal maids to help him dress, it should be remembered that he must put on his own underwear so that no one reveals the young man's true gender. To do this, Estin can say that he has scars and he doesn't want to show them. Then the maids will understand. The guy replies to the girl that he understood everything, after which he looks at himself in the mirror and realizes that it's all about accessories. After all, there is nothing special about Estella, but she still looks pretty decent. One thing the Countess doesn't realize is that she didn't expect a 16-year-old boy, let alone a 27-year-old man, to have such a smooth face and slender shoulders. Thinking that the woman is just dreaming, she decides to forget about it. When Estella and Elendia come downstairs, they find Cleo sitting at the table. He turns around and says that cosmetics and clothes really do work wonders. Estella says she doesn't care for His Majesty's taunts, then asks where they are going. Leo says they must first visit the Arthur family's new residence, where Estine will live while His Majesty and the young lady are engaged. If they don't do it today, it will be much harder next week to get everything done before the day of mourning. The Crown Prince says that the house in which Estin is to live is one of the houses that His Majesty already possesses, and there are also people to whom Cleo must introduce Estella. His Majesty tells the girl that she doesn't have to move right away, but as long as she lives in that house, it will be harder to prepare for her debut and their engagement. Leo says that Estin can feel free to use the house however he wants, as long as they are bound by the contract. Estella asks the man a question, addressing him as His Majesty, whereupon Cleo replies that he asked her to just call him Leo. The girl tells His Majesty that they aren't that close yet, and Cleo compliments by saying that they should pretend to be close. Estella says she doesn't see the point, since everyone already knows we're only getting married, so Leo can become emperor. The Crown Prince says that no woman has ever spoken to him as cruelly as Estella. Making his trademark face, the man feigns pity, and the young lady blushes. The girl decides to stop bullying the prince by telling him that she will pretend. The upper-class neighbourhood of Winson Street. The prince gives the girl his hand as she steps out of the carriage. Leo tells Estella that she doesn't have to greet the servants formally, but she should remember them by sight. Also, the man says that the hired servants have bodyguard skills. The girl tells the man to forget about her guards, for while they are unable to take care of themselves, they are quite welcome. Cleo replies that they will not interfere with the young lady. The prince shows the girl the grounds, saying that for the next 5 years it will be hers. Estella says that everything looks quite beautiful, and it will be hard for even experienced assassins to get in here. Leo warns the girl that he will be coming by from time to time. And just so the girl is sure, he says that all the staff has been vetted before coming here. The nobles gathered not far from the couple. As they approached, the men said hello to His Highness and said that the lady's presence was a blessing to them. After kissing the girl's hand, one of the men said he was honoured to meet her. After that, Cleo decided to introduce the grey-haired man with Estelle. It turned out that the man's name was Hans Maximilian. He was an imperial knight, but His Majesty had managed to win his favour. Hans will now fulfil the role of Estella's personal escort and Knight of House Arthur. Also, Leo has not forgotten about the second man. Jürgen Heinz is an eccentric guy. Originally he was Cleo's personal secretary, but now he will act as the girl's butler. Estella whispered to Leo. It seemed to her that Jürgen wasn't very happy to be here. His Majesty said that a man always has that expression on his face. As for that, he is very talented, so the girl should use his abilities properly. The man also added that Jürgen had an excellent memory. Leo hugged the girl and offered to show her her new house. Walking around the house, the prince said that there were 2 secret passages in the house, which the butler would tell the girl about later. Guy also said that the mourning for the Viscount's daughter would end next week, which meant that the engagement ceremony would also take place in a week, but only if the prince had time to prepare properly by then. Estella realises that the engagement period will not last long. Leo says he would like to get married even sooner, but due to circumstances, he cannot speed up the process. The wedding ceremony will be a big part of the coronation. But since there are certain rules of the temple to be followed, the ceremony can't be held before 6 months. Even if they hurry up and make Estella the crown princess now, it would still be a long time before the coronation. The girl said that she was sure that His Majesty was more upset about not being able to become emperor in the coming days. Leo agreed, adding that they would spend the next 5 years together, so it would be wonderful to start their life together as early as possible. Cleo makes his peculiar facial expression again, making the girl embarrassed, causing her to ask to continue looking around the house further. His Majesty says that right now, the girl needs to focus on her debut in high society, so she asked him not to fill her pretty head with other problems. Thanking the man, the girl continued walking forward. Leo didn't understand what to be thankful for. Estella said that he could easily have asked someone else to inform her about the changes in the schedule. The girl realised that he was only wasting his time to appear polite. The man was pleased that she noticed it. Sitting down at the piano, Estella said that there was no need to be seen in public together yet. Therefore, it would be normal for a man to relay messages through someone. Leo didn't realise how much the girl disliked his company. Estella replied that maybe she didn't particularly like it. The man called out to Estella, but she interrupted him. The girl said that His Highness should not waste his name on unimportant matters. After getting close to her, Leo said that she knew how to hurt him. Even though he was the one who suggested the contract, it did not exclude that they would spend 5 years together. Cleo wants to see the young lady more often and build a lasting relationship with her. His Majesty asks if this embarrasses Estella, but the blushing girl replies that she wasn't trying to hurt the man. Leo also says that the girl will soon become an earl. an earl with a fortune of 30 million gold, so it wouldn't hurt him to maintain good relations with Estin. Standing up, the girl said that she felt very insulted when His Majesty said such things, adding that Raskan had always taught Estella not to trust salesmen. Leo repeats that he is a politician, to which the girl replies that it has nothing to do with that. Exploring the young lady's home, Cleo says he has a gift for the lady. His Majesty leads the girl to a table on which there is a chocolate cake decorated with strawberries. Not believing her eyes, the girl asks if it is for her. Leo says that it is another gift in honor of the engagement, especially since the girl obviously did not see fit to wear diamonds. Cleo leaves the girl alone, saying that he needs to talk to Jürgen. Estella thanks the man by bowing. As soon as the girl brings a piece of cake to her mouth, something suddenly starts flying in her direction. The girl knew this could happen. She sensed something was wrong in the room as soon as she entered the room, but the Crown Prince didn't say anything, so she assumed that there were just guards lurking around. The girl wounds her attacker. Taking the sword in her hand, she begins to fight the man in the black cloak. After a heavy altercation, the princess's sword ends up at the throat of the man in black. Leo bursts into the room with Jürgen, yelling for the girl to stop. Estella throws off her wig, asking if this can be considered the first assassination attempt. It turns out that the attack on the girl was planned by Jürgen, who wanted to check whether she was really Raskan's daughter. Approaching the girl, Leo asks if she is upset. Estella says that it was a useful test, and that the man in black was lucky because she did not manage to cut off his head. The young lady realizes that the attack was planned and that the Crown Prince knew about it. Angry, the girl says that the wig won't fit. Not understanding the lady's reaction, Leo tries to find out if she's angry. Estella says that it was a great way to test her self-defense skills, and also sees that Jürgen didn't expect such a reaction from her at all. Leo ordered Heinz to get a skillful maid to fix Estella's wig. The girl said the dress was fine, but she couldn't use the sword properly while wearing the wig. The long hair blocks the view. If the wig was fastened on her head, the girl would be taken out of the battle quickly, but if not, it could suddenly come off in the middle of the battle. When asked by Leo why the girl didn't kill the man, Estella replied that she saw that they didn't plan to wound her, and also the girl noticed His Majesty's inaction, which confirmed that it was just a test. Cleo asked if the girl would have been able to if it wasn't a test. She wouldn't have been able to, for it wasn't fair. People would have been sent by someone else and they would have gotten hurt. Leo said she was the one being treated unfairly, so why didn't she react? Estella said that if unfair treatment is a good reason to kill, then at least half the nobles would die at the hands of their own guards. Cleo said that was different. Not only would they serve the girl, soon she would be the Empress of Alpenstein. The girl supplemented by saying she would be the temporary Empress. His Majesty says that whatever the case, she will rule for 5 years. The girl says she doesn't want to shed blood where violence can be dispensed with. Leo then tells the young lady that in this struggle for the throne, she is his first and only ally. The least he can ask of her is that she retain the qualities of a knight. Turning around, His Majesty apologizes, saying that unless she is capable of taking someone's life, he cannot allow her to be dragged into something so dangerous. Jürgen apologizes to Leo for daring to question His Highness's choice. Cleo says it's hard to believe until you see it for yourself, and he knows it. Jürgen is going to apologize to Lady Estella, after which he thinks about resigning. His Majesty says it won't change anything, and Heinz only needs to get her forgiveness. So he tells Jürgen to do everything in his power just to get forgiveness and stay in the position. If Leo fires the butler and replaces him with another, because Jürgen has lost Estella's favor, he thinks that others will not be able to earn her trust. Seeing the look on the man's face, Cleo added that he shouldn't worry because the girl was too lazy to hold a grudge against him. Leo realizes that the more he gets to know Sir Estin, the more he captivates him. How can someone who can be enthralled by a single dessert become a completely different person as soon as a sword is in his hands? Cleo realizes that Sir Rashan has been hiding a real treasure. Walking down the street, Estin thinks about what a crazy day yesterday was, so he urgently needs to eat something sweet to make himself feel better. Estin realizes that the qualities inherent in a knight are loyalty, faith in his comrades, protection of the weak, and the will to fight to the last breath and never retreat. Without fear, without hesitation, to raise the sword for the truth. Of course, no one has heard of knights who are afraid to kill, which is why Estin won't hesitate if his life is threatened. But he doesn't know what will happen if he faces something that can be solved without killing. However, if he hesitates, something will happen that cannot be prevented. Estella decides not to get worked up, because what will happen, will happen. A colleague is waiting for Estin at the headquarters, although he realized that the young man is a slacker, but this is too much even for him. It was because the young man hadn't shown up for work for several days. Suddenly the door opened, and Estin appeared from behind it. He was worried, and his colleague asked him if everything was all right, because the long absence made him think that he was ill. The guy brought a package with him, which interested a co-worker. Asking what was in the bag, the man was told that it contained treats. Delphin asked if there was alcohol in it. Then Estin said they were at work, so no. The co-worker smelled a sweet aroma. Knowing that Estin had brought the bag, Delphin assumed it contained desserts. 2 other co-workers ran up and asked what it was in honor of, after which both of them pounced on the desserts. Pulling the guys away, the man told them to say hello for starters. As he approached, the man inquired if the young man was going to retire since he had brought treats. As hard as it was for Estin, he admitted that it was true. The man said he always knew Estin wouldn't stay in this place for long, especially with his laziness. Estin decided to confess that he wanted to fool around at headquarters until he retired. The man then said that if the young man was talented, he would be noticed wherever he went. The young man confessed that his sister was just marrying a rich man. The 2 men piling on the desserts realize that they need to say goodbye to Sir Estin. Then one of the men present offers to take alcohol, but the young man refuses, saying he can't drink. This reminds the boy of Tyson. Turns out Tyson hasn't been seen in weeks. Estella realizes that she won't be able to meet the boy on Estin's behalf for the next 5 years. Every time they had a free day, Tyson found the young man and threw his glove on the table. Estin realized that Tyson had been chasing him all along only because he wanted to make a friend. He was brought out of his thoughts by his colleagues, who thanked him for the desserts and offered him a drink together. If it was his last day, they should make the most of it. The young man declines the offer, saying he's a little busy tonight, then gives them the money, telling his co-workers to have a drink on him. Estin wishes his colleagues good luck, promising to let them know if he succeeds. Everyone has already decided who they will be working at the young man's house. Delphin takes a seat and says that as long as he's here, the young man will never have to go anywhere on his own again. Estin climbs on the man's back, joking that he's going to be a rich man soon, so it would be good to practice. Jokingly, the other co-workers pick up the young man, placing a crown on his head, which has been replaced by a donut, and also putting on a cloak. Afterward, Estin says that he will try his best to become a merciful ruler. Estella really thought she hadn't done anything in her 4 years of life as Estin. She had assumed she would blot that part of her life out of her memory with no regrets, but in fact, she would miss it a lot more than she had expected. Estin comes out of the headquarters with a carriage and 2 men standing next to him. The man with grey hair begins to say that his name is Ernest. He is Marquis Caden's butler, and the man next to him is Sir Ralph, Commander-in-Chief of the Knights. Estin decides to introduce himself, after which he asks why the men are looking for him. Ernest says that Marquis Caden wishes to see the young man, so the butler asks if the boy can give Marquis some of his time. Estin doesn't understand what Caden wants from him. Estin realizes that there is no way Caden could have known that he is the Crown Prince's bride-to-be. The young man hopes that he is not being summoned because of Tyson, who may have gotten into trouble somewhere and now suspects the young man. Upon arriving, the young man is asked to go inside. Walking into Sir Caden's office, the men said hello to each other. Caden apologized for such a sudden invitation. The young man replied that he was honored, and there was no need to apologize for it. The Marquis invited the young man to the table. Pouring tea, he offered Estin some cakes. Thanking Caden, the former knight proceeded to eat, starting with sweets. Eating his way around the table, the young man smiles at the delicious desserts, causing the Marquis to ask about the taste of the desserts. The young man then recalls how he ate in front of His Majesty. The guy asks to pass on his thanks to the head chef for such delicious dishes. Caden decides to start talking that it will be about his son. Asking Estin if he is close enough to Tonton, the man forces the girl into a stupor. After being told about Tonton on behalf of the Marquis, Estella realizes that Tonton is Tisson. Estin realizes that the young man's father is just worried about him, as his shamelessness has caused him to have no friends. And even though Tisson himself doesn't share this, Caden knows that he is often left out. Estin tries to comfort the man by saying that because he's always working out, he hardly thinks about his friends. Caden then confesses that Tyson, after meeting the young man, began to refuse picnics with his mum for the sake of their meeting. Caden's wife cried about it more than once. The man also said that his son had spent the last 2 weeks at home, refusing to leave the room, so Marquis wanted to know if the boys had had a fight. Estin said they hadn't been fighting lately. Caden said he knew about the boys' fights from before. Then the young man tried to explain himself, saying that it was a misunderstanding, because Tyson just thought that Estin didn't take their training seriously. That's why he got angry. The man then wanted to know about their relationship. Estin told the man that Tyson overestimates his abilities and is looking for a young man to train together. And yet the guy says they don't have a close enough relationship for friends. Tyson burst into the room. Calling his daddy, the young man reminded him that he was okay. Caden asked his son to call him daddy, not father. The boy then promised his dad that he would leave the house if the man didn't stop. The man became upset, not understanding how anyone could threaten his dad. Caden asked his son if it was so bad that his father had decided to meet his friend. Looking around, Tyson saw a blushing Estin. Taking the boy's hand, the dark-haired young man ran into the yard. When he arrived on the porch, the young man addressed his acquaintance, calling him Tonton. The young man immediately blushed and asked Estienne not to call him that again, or he would die of shame. Estella, mocking the boy, decided to say that everyone in Alson clearly knew how beloved Sir Tisson was. Sitting down on the steps, the boy says that he doesn't like this overly strong love from his parents. Estin doesn't understand why the young man can't move out then. Tyson responds to the boy's question by saying that moving out would break his mother's heart. Estella says that at least the knight has a mother. Then Tyson remembers that the young man's mother died when he was a child, so he didn't even remember the woman's face. The knight apologizes, and the young man says that everything is fine and no apology is needed. Watching the sunset, Tyson says that he used to think that the young man didn't care about him. Then Estella decides to confess that she never disliked him. It's just that Estin is annoyed that every time they meet, the knight asks the guy to do something he doesn't want to do. Estin said that when Tyson had stopped visiting him, he had thought that the young man was wounded or something of the sort. The knight said that the fears were in vain, for it was all about something else. Without saying anything, Tisson asked Estin if his sister had mentioned that they had met. The boy tried to see if Estella had said anything. Then Estin said that she had mentioned him, saying that the young man was handsome. Tyson blossomed before his eyes, after which he asked if she was married, to which the lad had to reply that she was soon to be engaged. From the knight's reaction, it was immediately obvious that he was upset. The young man explained that he should have guessed that such a wonderful lady was betrothed, even at such an age. Estella realizes that Tyson likes her very much. That day, Tisson saw Estin as Estella for the first time. The girl didn't understand what it was, whether it was love at first sight. She didn't know how to react to it. She didn't understand who could have liked Estella. Estin didn't have to think about it. He didn't want to ruin the relationship he and the knight had at that point. Estin interrupted the flow of his thoughts by saying that anyway, he thought it was better to come and say goodbye in person. Tyson didn't understand why saying goodbye. The young man said he was leaving Ulsan. The dark-haired lad thought that Estin was being sent abroad, but this is not the case, for he has only been in the city guard for 4 years. The former knight admits that he is leaving the order. Tyson can't believe that the young man is really leaving. Estin replies that he has been given a title and needs to return to the village for family reasons. When he sees the knight's distraught face, he is confused. Estin said that the knight himself kept saying that the young man needed to take care of restoring the family name. Tyson said that wasn't the case at all. Estella then confessed that she would be gone for at least 5 years. Because of that, Estin didn't know if their conversation might have been their last. Tyson congratulated the young man, saying that he had really succeeded. The boy didn't understand why the knight was so upset, to which he replied that he was sad to see his friend go. Seeing Tyson like this, the former knight realized that if he were really Estin or only Estella, then maybe the knight would actually like the young man. But, stuck somewhere between the two of them, he continued to be repulsed by Tyson. To be repulsed in order to prevent the boy from discovering the young man's identity. But Estelle had never hated him. The girl was grateful to Tyson, for he had always been kind to the lad. Estin asked the young man not to tell anyone. Didn't say he'd sold his sister to restore the family's reputation. It was Estella's idea, not Estin's. Tyson said he would never have said such a thing. The former knight said the young man had always been extremely forthright. Holding out his hand to Tyson, Estin said that he hoped they would meet soon, and when that moment came, the young man would no longer hold back. Overjoyed, the knight held out his hand in return, saying that he would look forward to it. Estella realized that saying goodbye to the young man face to face was the best decision. After a while, the girl stood with His Majesty under her arm. The man said that the ceremony of conferring a new title on Sir Estin was quite simple. At Leo's words, Estella said that he gave her land and even an estate, although it was even more like an old castle. But the contract didn't say anything about an estate. Cleo said that it was of great importance. Now the Arthur family would be treated as a full member of the traditional aristocracy, not as one of the nouveau riche. Estella said that people might get the impression that His Majesty favoured her too much. Cleo did not see anything wrong in it, because jewellery is not very interesting to the young lady, so he had to think of something else. Estella said that she had agreed to marry him without all the gifts, not to mention the bonuses stipulated in the contract. So the girl asked what complaints she might have. Then Leo asked if the girl felt betrayed by the test. The girl, however, said that to feel betrayed, one must first be trusted. After which the girl said that His Majesty knows who she really is, but he also fought her, so he knows her abilities. Naturally, people who hadn't seen her in action would be doubtful. In any case, if His Highness continued to give her such gifts, the others would start complaining. Cleo tried to call out to the girl, calling her by name, but she continued talking. It seemed to her that it would be better to give a demonstration of her skills, once for everyone. There was no reason to be against it. Personally, she would prefer such an outcome to the constant doubts about her. Leo said he wouldn't stop giving her gifts, but he wanted the girl to realize how much he cared for her without them. Estella didn't understand. First Tyson, now the Crown Prince. She didn't understand what was wrong with these men. The girl realized that His Majesty was now treating her the same way the Imperial Knight was treating Estin, but she still couldn't trust him. The young lady said that more jewellery from His Highness was too much. Leo had given her more than enough. Then the man said she didn't like jewellery. The young lady answered the man by saying that expensive things are not suitable for everyone. Like the diamond necklace, it's hard to match with the dress, and the aquamarine necklace is too short. It doesn't suit Estella at all. Anyway, a man who dresses in rags and is still a fashion icon of high society. He could never understand the girl's feelings. Then the man asked about the earrings and bracelet, to which the girl replied that the earrings could still fit, but the bracelet would not be suitable for battle. It would only prevent the lady from using the sword more effectively. Remembering, Leo decided to ask the girl about the sword belt. The girl told the man that if her sword was in the same room as her dress, the two women looked as if they were ready to kill the young lady with a look. Estella asked Leo why he was free, reminding him that the engagement ceremony was in a couple of days. Cleo decided to ask about the fact that the girl so disliked spending time with him. The lady told His Majesty that for the next 5 years she would not have a day of rest, so she would want to squeeze the most out of this freedom while the opportunity was there. The man complimented by saying that 5 years that would be spent seeing his face every day. After which he asked if it would be better to get used to it beforehand. The girl honestly admitted that it was hard to relax around His Highness, much harder than he could imagine. Leo asked that it was because he was handsome. Estella realized that the man was right, but he didn't have to say it out loud. Saying that the man knew the girl agreed with his words, he took her by the shoulders and dragged her along. Estella said she truly envied His Majesty's confidence. Leo led the young lady to the dining room. The lady reminded the man that they had dined not too long ago. Leo said they weren't there for lunch, calling for a servant, who brought a box and set it on the table. The man reminded Estella that he had promised her something when they talked about the agreement. Opening the box, the girl saw the dishes, saying that she didn't remember promising a gift of dishes. Leo then said it wasn't just dishes. The girl said she couldn't see that the dishes were made of silver. Then the man said that this dishware was the secret to not falling victim to poisoning, the sacred metal that neutralizes any poison or curse, Lenadium. Lenadium, considered a holy metal, was given to Emperor Alzan by the goddess Severina herself so that he could protect the human race. The emperor forged spears, swords, and armor. The girl asked if it should be in the museum now. The man said that this metal could only be worked with the help of divine powers, and only then would it be able to protect its master from any dangers. But if Lenadium can't be obtained on its own, and they only have what the goddess granted to humans, it means that Leo has repurposed some things. A shocked Estella couldn't believe what she was hearing. Leo said that the Crown Prince's armor alone wasn't enough to stay alive. Witches and monsters have all but disappeared from the face of the earth, and now the real danger lies in fellow humans. The girl asked if the man had received permission to do so from his father. The man said that ever since he had gotten lost as a boy, his father had always been very concerned about his son's safety. The girl became angry when she guessed that the man himself had decided that this situation gave him the right to melt down national treasures. Leo replied that it was, saying that the treasure was not worth more than the emperor's life. Estella said that makes sense, but it's still crazy. Cleor interjected, "Is it crazy, or is the man just being very practical?" Also, His Majesty added that it's quite practical. There's no way for intruders to replace the set with a fake. And since Lenadium neutralizes any poison and curse, Estella can eat and drink without much fear. The girl asked if His Majesty used these, to which Leo replied that he only made himself cutlery. The main benefit of having a Lenadil spoon was the ability to carry it quietly with him to formal banquets. Cleo said that he had ruined the girl's serene life of laziness, and the least His Majesty could do was to let Estella enjoy her hobby without too many worries. The girl said she usually kept her guard up while eating. Estella realized that she could let her guard down if the dessert was really good. Leo said he didn't mean it that way. He admitted to the girl that he liked to see how much she enjoyed eating. The girl said that when His Majesty said such things, it made it even harder for her to enjoy her food in his presence. Leo said that was just the truth, after which His Highness said it was time to move on to the real gift. At the same moment, the servants started rolling out various kinds of desserts on carts, after which the man said that it was compensation for the spoiled chocolate cake. Everything that the girl saw was the result of the joint work of all the cooks, not only from the Piella castle, but also from the Crown Prince's castle. Asking if the girl liked these desserts, the young man also asked if all this would make up for the cake that was spoiled earlier. Estella said that it wouldn't do any good that way, as she wouldn't be able to eat it all by herself. Desserts were created to be enjoyed to the fullest, but if the girl couldn't eat it all, they would have to be thrown away, and that was a crime of pure water. The Crown Prince laughed at the girl's displeasure, while she was so angry she didn't know what to do. Leo said that whatever the girl doesn't eat will be given to the servants and other employees, and from now on, the man would make sure that the girl's portions of desserts would be smaller. Taking a fork, His Majesty stabbed a piece of dessert, bringing it to the girl's mouth. Having tasted a piece of dessert, the girl said that His Highness's idea was excellent. The girl realized that there were a lot of calories in it. Then the man suggested Estella to burn them at the workout. The young lady realized that it was not a bad idea, but she'd be a little bored fighting Sir Hans. The training would help her get used to moving around in those clothes. The man asked how long it had been since the girl had switched to you with Hans. Estella said they would be spending a lot of time together, so the sooner they get close, the better. And Hans is a good guy. Leo was jealous that the girl called Hans a good guy. Asking Estella what about Leo, the girl said that she didn't understand what about His Majesty. Then the man said they would be spending a lot of time together too. So he asked how long Estella would call him His Highness. The girl said it was just a business deal. Cleor interrupted her, saying that even business partners can be friends. The young lady asked if it was not enough for His Majesty that she would give him 5 years of her life. Leo said that he had already warned the girl that their fates were closely intertwined, and when those 5 years had passed, the man could help the girl live a carefree life. Just need the girl to be a little friendlier to him, because it's not hard. The girl thought that the man was talking about wanting to stay with her even after these 5 years had passed. The girl realized that something was wrong. Even if she ignores it, there's still a lot of weirdness. It wasn't the first time he said something like that. Not knowing what to do, the girl decided to ask if His Majesty liked men. Estella explained that the man was too interested in the girl, or he has an illegitimate child that the young lady must pass off as her own. The young man asked if his desire to have a swordsman with Estin's abilities as an ally was so unusual. Afterward, the angry prince said that Estin had a rare talent, just like his father. Their family art of swordsmanship interested the man too much. Then the man stood up and said that he would not pity the knight just because he was in a dress. The girl started first. Since Leo already knew about Estin's weaknesses, he would try to take him by surprise, in which case the girl started to rush to the attack. If she could get closer, it would be much easier for her. Before she could react, the man struck the girl in the stomach with his fist, saying that he used to be a mercenary, and when he fights you can't expect a fair bat. Estella realized that Leo could see right through her. Cleo told the girl to keep her guard up and keep going. Every time they have a duel, a fighting spirit awakens in the girl that she can't explain. It's not just strong. The girl felt that she might not be able to hold back while fighting His Majesty. Therefore, no matter what happens, she must win. Suddenly, Elendia appears with Anne and catches Leo and Estella practicing. The practitioners notice them, and the Countess immediately orders Anne to prepare a bath for the dirty lady and goes straight to talking to her. Clearly a bit annoyed, the Countess addresses the lady, for she has tried to arrange with her to work out at a certain time, and that she even deigned to take off her shoes with her wig. Estella makes the excuse that she ate a lot of sweets and needs to burn calories. The staff at the manor are of course aware of the girl's short hair, but Elendia worries that someone else might have seen it. She hopes that Estella has not forgotten that she is to report to Viscountess Nias's daughter's tea party at 4 o'clock. Leo stands up for the girl and says that he was the one who suggested the training and that he will be more careful from now on. Elendia exclaims that she is the only one who takes it seriously, because there is not much time left before the engagement ceremony. Until then, Lady Estella must do her best to present herself as a young noble lady. The trainees are asked to hurry up and get ready, for time is short. Elendia leaves the pair. Estella herself then decides to finish her workout and says pleasantries to Leo, who in turn comes closer and kisses her hand. She turns to the prince and says that he seems quite normal, as long as he pretends to be serious. Already in the bathroom, the lady remembers how before going to the bathroom, Elendia explained that Anne would stand outside and make sure no one came in, and asks her to return as quickly as she can. She thinks this place is paradise and wants to forget about the tea party. Suddenly, the relaxing bath is interrupted by a demand to hurry from behind the door. As soon as Estella comes out of the bathroom, she is immediately grabbed by the arm, pulled into the room, and begins to get ready for the meeting. Everyone revolves around her, colouring and dressing her. The lady looks at it all nonchalantly, pleased, and says that everyone is making more of a fuss than usual. Elendia responds by saying that they have just received word. Duchess Rickham will be there as well. Before she can ask, Estella is given a dress that Lady Lydia had made especially for her, and then a hat is put on. The girl is delighted with her appearance and does not even know what to say. Almost forgetting about the brooch, the Duchess also clips it on Estella's costume. Sitting in the carriage, a lady asks Jurgen about the Duchess of Rickham. It turns out that she is the second daughter of Empress Albina. At the age of 17, she married the 56-year-old Duke of Rickham. She was his third wife, but was widowed 8 months later. He continues that most assumed she married him, counting on his influence and wealth to support Prince Isidore in his quest for the throne. But whatever her motives, the age difference caused quite a scandal. She had been a modest and quiet girl before her marriage, but now she had almost dethroned Empress Albina as Queen of Alpenstein's high society. Estella wonders who will eventually inherit the duchy. Jürgen continues that no one has inherited. The illegitimate son, Earl Swinson, was not recognised by the two previous duchesses, so he was unable to take over his father's title, and no one else has enough influence besides him to take the title. Estella asks if the Duke's death was natural. It turns out that officially he died a natural death because he was suffering from a chronic illness, and everyone knew about his drinking. That's why no one saw anything suspicious in his sudden death. The lady keeps asking about her. This time she asks if the Duchess has a lover, but as far as the servant knows, she doesn't. In any case, since her husband is dead, it wouldn't give her any trouble. The girl asks about her sisters. Her older sister, Princess Margia, was originally Empress Albina's successor, but it has been almost 3 years since she decided to disappear after her marriage to Viscount Daniel. As for the younger sister, all that is known is that she is quite withdrawn. When they arrive, another servant greets them and tells the lady that due to the sudden increase in the number of guests, afternoon tea has been moved to the garden and invites her to follow him. Estella thanks Jürgen for his escort and leaves for the residence. Entering the garden, the girl is surprised to see that there are actually a lot of guests and realizes that such a dramatic increase in the number of guests is due to the appearance of the Duchess of Rickham. She realizes that the reason for this sudden appearance is a desire to learn more about Estella. The lady realizes that eventually they will have to cross swords, and there is nothing to fear here. The dukes are of course likely to insult her, but the Duchess herself poses no real threat. Lady Neas approaches the girl and greets her. She hopes Estella will enjoy her afternoon tea. Estella thinks the Duchess's appearance has caused her a lot of trouble. Baroness Scarn approaches. She admires a new dress from Lady Lydia. Estella sees that more and more guests are flocking to her. They want to see the engagement ceremony as soon as possible. They are jealous, because being betrothed to the Crown Prince is even beyond their wildest desires. They have heard that Leo is kind, and spares no expense when it comes to Lady Arthur. They think it is very nice. In her head, Estella runs it through her mind that their Crown Prince from dreams likes to go out in strange wigs and is more than happy to mercilessly punch his own bride in the kidneys. She knows the prince thinks she's a man, and is sure he'd do the same if he knew her gender. Lady Okaya hopes that nothing will happen this time, and says it loudly and asks for her forgiveness. When it comes to someone as charming and noble as the Crown Prince, some people will always enjoy spreading rumours about them. One of the girls says that it is very hard to find a girl that has never been in love with a prince at least once. Suddenly, Rickham appears in the garden. Estella greets her and says it is an honour to see her. The Duchess asks her to introduce her to the other guests. She says she kept nagging her brother for not introducing her to Estella sooner, and is sure the girl knows about his love of doing things his way. She even started to worry that she wouldn't be able to meet the lady before the engagement ceremony. Estella is well acquainted with her brother's character. Rickham asks the girl not to be formal, for after all they will soon be family. Estella senses something uneasy in these words, for it is unlikely that a woman of such a background would be happy to accept the daughter of a fallen family. The Duchess shows her guests her hand cream, which was given to her by a representative of the Kingdom of Berryer. Its fragrance so captivated her that she was obliged to share it with everyone present. The guests see the hand cosmetics for the first time and are greatly surprised. Estella is uneasy. She likes seeing the different dresses, and the food and tea are delicious, but something very much keeps her in suspense, as if a viper is preparing to attack from behind her. Rickham notices the girl's face and thinks she won't like the gift. She tells us that her family was not very wealthy. Because of the housework she had to do, her hands became rough, and so she is too embarrassed to show them in front of the Duchess. The latter says that no one can do anything about their origins. Estella begins to tell her that there are people who grew up in a rich and noble family, but they lack education and refinement. These words caused consternation on the guests' faces, and the Duchess smiled and noted that the girl is much more interesting than she thought. The lady sees that no matter how noble and refined Rickham tries to behave, deep down, she is not like that at all. After the tea party at Estella's house, Elendia asks Elendia what is happening at the ceremony and mentions Duchess Rickham. With obvious displeasure on her face, the girl says that she is dazzlingly beautiful, very rich, and belongs to the upper class. That's why she doesn't understand why the Duchess is such a horrible person despite all this. At the end of the day, the girl gives her 1 point. Elendia wondered if Estella had noticed that many people worshipped the land the Duchess walked on. Especially young men, they considered her a goddess. She confessed that she was worried that Estella would fall under the spell of Rickham too. Elendia warns the lady that she will prepare a bath and leave her to rest for a while. Estella is pretty exhausted. She looks at herself in the mirror and thinks about everything she has been through during the day. Of course, she likes beautiful people, and is starting to like being beautiful more and more, but she can't help but feel a little sad, because Countess Bartholomew still has no suspicions about her true gender. She looks at her hands. They are indeed rough. Immediately she remembers the cream that was given to her by Rickham, and examines the jar. Wonders if she could have made her move so soon. Something about this jar doesn't appeal to her, but she doesn't understand why herself yet. The girl takes a knife to reassure herself just in case. A small handful of cream appears on the knife, and it suddenly begins to glow and emit purple particles, but suddenly disappears as well. Delighted by the shenanigans, Estella realizes that the Countess is far more horrible than she thought. It wasn't poison, for Rickham had given this cream to everyone at the tea party, but the Lanadium reacted to it. Perhaps it was meant to cause some addiction and bad effects with prolonged use. The girl thinks that her damaged hands won't prevent her from becoming an empress. In the palace, Rickham appears in the mirror in front of the pool. She starts talking to her mother. Mother asks if Cleora has met her new bride there. Rickham says that Estella looks quite ordinary and is not particularly good at socializing. The daughter talks about the tea mug that Cleo's fiancé drank from. It was made of Lanadium. Annoyed, the mother assumes that Cleo wanted to take advantage of the neutralizing properties, and Rickham assumes it was a test. They speculate that what happened to Ines Maynard must have made a lasting impression on him, but still, they are not sure he can be shocked. Mistress tried to hurt Estella with words, but it didn't work. Since the new bride has this metal, it will be extremely difficult to get rid of her, and they will need to make a great effort. They don't understand where Cleo could have found such a girl. Rickham asks if she can have her for herself. Mum suggests they think about it. Rickham is changing her clothes. Servants are circling around her. Then Isidore, second in line to the throne, walks in. She asks to leave them indoors, wondering what business could be so urgent as to enter the ladies' room. It wasn't that urgent. He had heard that Constance had met with Cleo's new bride. She thought taking a look at her before the ceremony would be a good idea. Cleo had been quite cautious and kept their meeting away. Isidore wondered how it had gone. Rickham tells us that the prince gave Estella Lanadium. Cleo has really thought of everything. Constance has also taken a liking to the bride, saying she wants one for herself. It turns out Constance has always liked new things. Rickham is increasingly piquing Isidore's interest. The Duchess notices that the young man looks rather anxious. He says that as soon as the marriage ceremony is over, they will start organising the coronation right away. If Cleor is crowned and takes the sacred sword and spear, then they may not stand a chance. Rickham asks not to worry, for even if the coronation takes place, Cleor will not last 3 days on the throne. 3. Isidore thinks he should be killed before the coronation, but it's not so simple, for he is the rightful heir to Alpenstein. He was born with strong blood, and most people would be cleansed at his touch. They realise that if they want to get rid of him, they will need magic, but he is too powerful. Isidore wonders if Constance's plan will actually work, since she has failed 3 times already. Rickham says that if this plan doesn't work, they can just kill her like the past ones. But disrupting his plans for marriage isn't a big deal. Every time Cleor fails, his alliance weakens, and more people lose faith in him, and more women reject him. This is what Rickham says allows their power to grow deeper, and it doesn't exactly feel like failure. She assures Isidore that he doesn't even have to lift a finger. They can handle everything. He must remain righteous and pure until the time comes to be a beacon of hope for humanity when Cleor is gone. The day before the engagement ceremony, Estella is dressed up for the second most important day of her life, as the first is the wedding. Anne is jealous. She will never have anything as grand as an engagement ceremony. Estella asks if Anne has anyone in mind. Another maid joins the conversation and says that Anne has her eye on Mac, the son of the Bartholomew gardener. She says they both only have eyes for each other. Anne blushes. Elendea enters the room. She says that Anne is quite fortunate, but it is much better to be born into a good family. After all, Estella's father left her in a rather favourable position. As she has heard, the prince has proposed to her, thinking of it as a thank you to her father. There are people who like to gossip. They try to find faults. In her place of origin and residence, want to reproach that they have little money. However, no one can deny that her father had the honour of saving the crown prince's life. Estella hears this for the first time. He had never said that to his daughter. When the crowned prince was returned to their Ilta, her father was his personal bodyguard. He had brought His Highness home safe and sound, despite the many dangers. Estella's father often left for work, and she knew almost nothing about it, because it was always top secret. Every time he left, her daughter worried that this time he might not come back. Another girl in the room asks not to believe any of the stories Estella hears. The prince was never cursed by a witch or anything like that. All that matters is that her father is doing everything he can to keep her safe. The lady thanks for the comfort. Estella is lying in her bed. She is pondering the new information of the day, including the fact that her father has something to do with the crown prince. She thinks that this way of retribution on Cleo's part is obviously horrible. She leaves her room. In the hallway, she sees an incredibly beautiful tiara. She wonders if it is worth risking her life to be able to wear it. Suddenly, she hears something outside the window. It turns out to be Cleo, wondering if he can come in. Estella jokingly asks what will happen if she refuses. The prince gets down on his knee. He says that in that case, until he leaves, he will sing a serenade for the girl. Afterwards, she asks what is wrong with Estella's face, for he even kneels before her. But these words do not make him any less ridiculous. Estella asks if he will leave if he refuses. If she allowed entry, he would be happy to show up at the front gate for a more formal visit. She realizes that in that case, she would have to expend her energies again to tidy up and put on her dress. The prince was immediately given permission. As she watched the prince climb the rope to the balcony, she emphasized that he would make a great burglar. He brags that he always has a backup plan of action. Estella asks what Cleo needed in the middle of the night. He shared that he had nothing to do until the engagement ceremony, and he thought it was his last chance to talk to them in peace. Once they are officially engaged, then her life will become extremely busy, so he wants to invite her over for one last night of freedom. Estella realized the meaning of these words and where the prince wants to invite her, and immediately tries to refuse. Other men have suggested she go to houses of ill repute. This is not what the prince meant, and asks to be given a list of these men to hang them by their ankles. How this? Estella asks if there are guards with the prince. He asks not to worry, for there is no man in Alpenstein who can slip past her brilliantly honed senses. She is more concerned for his safety than her own. The prince calms the girl by saying that he knows how to defend himself and that he has been fighting this war for 6 years. Cleo asks Estella to sit down. The girl tells him that there is no need to be so polite, because there is no one here. He reminds her that the day after tomorrow she'll be the highest-ranking lady in town, and just suggests she relax. But Estella thinks he's laughing at her. Turns out he's dead serious. Estella has accepted his behaviour as a cover to make their relationship appear genuine in public, but it is very awkward for her in private. She offers tea, but is immediately rebuffed. The Countess will not forgive him if she learns of his presence that night. Still, if they're going to use disguises, it has to be perfect. Cleo wonders if Constance is up for a fight. He has heard about Estella's little encounter. He is sure that the girl has many trump cards up her sleeve. Estella thought the prince had heard the entirety of their conversation. However, he only heard the girl's direct insult. Estella says she should have slapped him when she had the chance. Cleo laughed. He'd be lying if he said he hadn't hoped to hear it from her. Thinks she was testing Estella to see if she had the courage to fight back. The prince praised his interlocutor and said that she had held up well, but there was no need to restrain her anger. Despite Estella's courage, she is still a knight, and if she were to raise a hand against her, it would certainly not be a small matter. Anyway, Cleo is glad the girl is all right and asks if she realizes what she's up against. Cleo thinks the moonlight makes him more sentimental, but he was still worried about Estella. He touches the girl's face and wants to take her hand, but she turns her face away and withdraws her hand, saying that his faith in her is misplaced. Cleo asks if she doubts his sincerity. The girl's face is slightly flushed. The prince waits for an answer and hears that very little, it is true. She fulfills all of His Highness's demands for a wife, but his faith in her seems to go beyond those demands. Estella reveals that she knows of the prince's connection to her father. All would be fine, but the prince did not deign to come to the funeral. Cleo asks if that upset her. Today she learned that her father saved his life and concludes that they deliberately concealed their relationship. Cleo begins to make excuses. They hadn't done it intentionally, and he'd basically assumed she knew all about it. At first he even wondered if he had warned her to avoid him. Estella wondered if that was the reason why the prince was so kind to her. He wondered if she would accept his truth as it was in this case. He offered Sir Raskan all sorts of rewards for serving him, but he was adamant about taking sides. Estella asks, and raises her tone a bit, for even though the prince owed her father his life, he thought it would be a good idea to drag his son into all this factional politics. Cleo merely intended to respect her father's wishes, and that was why he didn't attend the funeral. But then, how could he look the other way after encountering such a treasure in Edward Forest? He couldn't pass up the opportunity to have such a malleable instrument fall right into Estella's hands. He has never perceived her in that way. He has given the girl generous gifts. He asks if that is not enough. Estella continues that she wouldn't call it unsatisfactory. Essentially, Sir Raskan wanted her to be able to choose for herself how to live her life. If his father agreed to serve the prince, strengthened his influence, and restored the Arthur family, then his children would also live tied to the expectations of that family. If he had taken the title, Estella Arthur would have been a noble lady, and Estin Arthur would have been the heir. In that case, both would have to justify their position in society. Cleo says that her father was sure that if he did not shackle her in this way, she could rise even higher than he did. Estella thought that since he said that, she could never rise higher than him. The position of Empress might be higher than an imperial knight, but she hasn't earned the position, and it's really unrealistic. Cleo asks if Sir Arthur will become his loyal knight. This sounds much more appealing to the girl than the whole Empress thing. However, the prince says it's too late for that. Estella asks if he realizes that she has no ambitions. Cleo's face changes and asks not to talk like that. The art of swordsmanship like Estella's cannot be acquired without ambition. She may be easy to please, but when it comes to the sword, he can tell that all her passion surpasses most. He may not have been completely serious in his intention, but a prince wouldn't mess with anyone like that. He tells the girl that she's vital to his survival, and so she needs to stay strong, even if he hates being an empress. Estella doesn't understand what this give and take is, so she asks not to worry. She has no complaints. Cleo asks not to forget that it is her services that he desires. She should value herself more, and she is worth much more than she thinks. Cleo says she's never that kind to people who don't deserve it, not to mention that she's much prettier and kinder than that snake Constance. Estella's face is flushed red. She doesn't know how to react and thanks for the words. Suddenly, a bluebird appears and says it has a report for the prince. There was a fire in the crown prince's palace, according to the bird. They managed to put it out before it spread. The cause was apparently the maids who spontaneously combusted. Estella interjects with concern on her face. It turns out this happens from time to time once a certain person deems their spies useless. Instead of running away, they are set on fire. It's a curse of sorts. As the influence grows, then there are more spies. Cleo begins to suspect that Empress Albina may actually be a witch. Estella is surprised that a witch can pretend to be a human. So not just a human, but a nobleman. Witches are different from mermaids and sirens, and you can't tell a human from a witch by appearance alone. It was only after us that the prince became convinced that such a thing was possible. Estella asks how he guessed. He could sense it. Of course, that's not enough, so he led her to the Kealalkan trees. She was so scared then that he even began to doubt the guess, but the trees recognized her identity. The girl also got a strange feeling from the Duchess of Rickham. Cleo says nothing escapes Estella. Many people don't notice until they are attacked. So far, they have no evidence against Albina and Constance. The prince asks the girl if she has told anyone else about Enos. She hasn't. It would tarnish her memory irreparably if it came out in public, so she's only told her father, Estella being the only one who still knows about it. Now that he has told her the most important thing he knows, there is no escape from it all for her anymore. Estella is certain that the chance for her to escape everything is long gone. If Further Majesty is truly sorry, she is ready to accept monetary compensation. Cleo says that she is indeed Daddy's little girl and offers a fine sword in lieu of money. She would prefer gems, of course, but the sword will be more useful to her now. Before leaving, the prince says he is already preparing a suitable gift. But the last thing he asks is if she really doesn't want to go out and have fun together. But she says they're not in that relationship and wishes she had a good trip home. Suddenly, Cleo walks up to Estella and kisses her on the cheek. He says it's to prepare for tomorrow. He asks if she can do it now in front of everyone. The girl's face is red. The prince asks not to be so nervous and says goodbye, jumping off the balcony. Estella continues to stand still and can't get away from what happened. Thinks, is this how people behave when they try to seduce? She wonders if he really likes men, since he still thinks she's a man. Engagement day. Estella walks down the hall with a man. He says that for the next 6 months after the engagement, they will have to come to the temple every day to purify themselves. It's necessary in order to be purified. Estella has heard that the term can't be shorter because of the coronation ceremony. That's right. Even though the wedding can be postponed, the coronation requires the two of them to be together for 6 months beforehand. Whether she is his crown princess or his fiancée, the crown prince's coronation cannot take place within that time frame. The girl understands everything. There is no need to rush. The crown prince can use this time well. The very first stone gate that Severina had erected in their world appears before them. The man invites the girl to follow him. In front of them, they see the statue of an angel in a pool. He says that Estella can immerse herself in the holy water of the fountain. His Highness had warned her that she would prefer to be alone, so he made sure this entire floor was empty. Estella thanks his attentiveness. He gives her a bottle and says if the water is cold, let her use holy water for protection. The man leaves the room. Estella wonders if this fountain will really give her divinity. Of course she believes in divine magic and the power of holy water. Except, does she have enough faith in Severina herself? She found it hard to believe that this power would transfer to her. After bathing, she goes to get dressed. It's almost over. Elendia says she has done a good job with them for the last 5 hours. The final step, they ask for the tiara to be served. It matches the dress perfectly. This sapphire tiara was worn by Estella's mother before she got married. Sadly, there are no memories of her family at all, but it will show the rest of us how seriously she takes herself. Tonight, it all starts for real. She will need all her strength to see this contract through. The Crown Prince's palace. Cleo meets the carriage with Estella. He says the girl is nice today. She thanks him. In her mind, the girl doesn't understand the uncertainty. She expected him to say something related to image and heavy makeup. The prince was sincere. He moves closer to the girl, kisses her ear and tells her she is beautiful. Estella's face is red again, but she tries to keep in her head that he's just putting on a show and nothing more because they have a contract. Cleo says the tiara suits her very well. He expected it. Estella says it would suit him better. The prince starts bragging and says that as handsome as he is, he has never looked particularly good in women's clothes. Estella asks if he has tried on women's clothes. Yes, he tried it on, making the excuse that there's nothing better than disguising yourself as the opposite sex. Estella can't imagine such a picture. Cleo begins to say that she is the first bride to be entrusted with such a significant item as a tiara. However, it was up to her whether she believed it or not. Cleo says that they should go in, as everyone is already waiting for them. He asks not to be nervous. If a commoner from Ilta like him could do it, a member of the Arthur family should have no problem. He asks that you feel free to tell him if you feel tired or uncomfortable. Hall. The host introduces the son of Alpenstein, the crowned Prince Cleo Wangley, and his bride, Lady Estella Arthur. The wedding ceremony took place without incident. It was Cleo's 8th engagement, and the celebration was relatively quiet. Rickham approaches them and congratulates them. She says that Estella looks dazzling. Estella admits to herself that looking at that face, she almost believes her. She could learn a thing or two from her acting. The gentleman approaches Cleorus and says he is glad that everything went smoothly, considering how previous engagements have gone. He hopes that this time Cleorus will succeed, to which he receives thanks. Afterward, Isidore and Miriami approach Estella and bow to each other, saying it is a great pleasure to meet her. They introduce themselves. Estella sees them as elegant and polite on the outside, but appearances can be deceiving. It's worth being on guard around them. The couple is on the dance floor, about to present their first dance. Estella praises Cleor, says he's good at dancing. He's been practicing day and night, so the nobles have no reason to make fun of him. Says she's not so bad herself. She's sure she'll never be confused when it comes to endurance and agility. The whole dance he looks at Estella's face. She notices this and tells him that it is rude to look at a lady's face like that while dancing. Cleo apologizes, but there are so many faces here that he would rather not see. The girl is sure there are better faces to look at, but she is certain that there is none as glorious as her very own. She only says this because she can't lie. Pointing at Marquis Caden, she says she looks more charming than the prince. Cleo asks about Sir Claudian. Estella gushes that there's a good chance that Thyssen will look like that in 20 years too. She tires of the song playing and wonders when it will be over. She sees food and desserts on the tables and wants to eat badly but can't do it. A friend of the host introduces Empress Albina Orpheus Alpenstein. Looking at her, Estella can't believe she's 50 years old. She replies that she looks more like Constance's sister than her mother. For some reason, she suddenly lost her breath and couldn't breathe. Albina approaches Estelle and asks if she can come upstairs. At the same time, Clover approaches Albina and says that he has the impression that she is not coming. Albina says that there is no way she could miss her eldest son's engagement party. Ustala says she is honoured to finally meet Her Highness. Albina also says I am honoured, and she remembers her father Sir Roshan. Stella is sure that her father would be the city to know that Albina remembers him, but the girl's nausea keeps getting worse. Priora turns to the girl. He says she can go into the next room if need be, she interjects. And he continues that of course she can, and that he is distinguishing the Empress in this case. He adds that Jürgen and Countess Bartholomew will join her soon, and he will send some food. After Cleora turns to Albina, he thinks that it must be almost a year since they last danced and asks her to dance to a song. Albina has a smile on her face and would be delighted to share the dance with her son. When Estella leaves the dance hall, she is met by a knight who asks if she's all right and asks her to take her to the drawing room. He asks the lady to hold his hand and says, "I'll take her now." The crowned prince has prepared a separate room especially for her. It is a room with a balcony so she can get some fresh air. The girl follows the knight. On their road meets a man in a long coat. His face was very unusual and his eyes flashed with despair. Estella is frightened of the man and does not understand why he keeps staring at her. The servant explains to the girl that it's Viscount Maynard. He says Estella doesn't have to talk to him if she doesn't want to. He can't bring himself to hate the crown prince, so there's a chance he'll direct his anger at the lady. The girl realizes that he hates her. She can't blame him if he feels that this engagement is connected to the death of his daughter. But that doesn't mean she should take his hatred so personally. His reign was a witch. The words he wants to say to her won't change anything. As he passes the man, he turns to her. The knight who had accompanied the girl says, "I will deal with him now." But suddenly Sir Tyson appears. He blocks the way and addresses the Viscount by name. He says it's been too long. As far as we know, the Crown Prince has given him his personal permission to stay home and get some rest in bed. A visibly frightened look on his face, Sir asks what's wrong. The Viscount says he made a promise, but His Highness is about to be betrothed to such a young girl from such a prestigious house. He felt it his duty to offer his congratulations. Tyson says the Viscount is in poor health and thinks he should return to the residence. He says he will provide an escort of his men. He tries to say something to Lady Arthur, but is interrupted by a tightly knit man who says that the prince is worried about him, and the Viscount agrees to leave the place. After the man had gone, he asked if he had tried to help her and thanked Tyson. There was a narrow pause between them. The girl would have preferred to leave, but it was clear that Sir wanted to say something. She doesn't know what it could be, but if she breaks the silence, it won't be so awkward. The girl awkwardly starts the conversation, saying that after all he has deigned to come, but he wasn't there earlier when she met his parents. After the girl started the conversation, she began to feel very awkward. The Vicomte himself is not himself after the death of his daughter, with the artist asks not to take it to heart. Suddenly the artist starts to talk. He knows it is too late for that, but congratulates her on her engagement. Tyson forgot to introduce himself, so he tells the girl his name and that he's a friend of her brother. She's seen him before, so she remembers him. Estin tells her about him. He says he's someone she can count on. Tyson's surprised. The man is sure that the Quran prince treats the girl well, and she gets everything, but he thinks she must miss her brother after being sent so far away. The girl thinks so. He certainly can't live up to Estin's standards, but he'd be happy to help her in any way he can. He asks him to let Estella know when she needs something. The lady thanks him. The palace is a dangerous place. He trusts Estella to be careful. She bids Tyson farewell and leaves. After they split up, Tyson stands looking up at the sky, remembering that he promised not to come. Well, it turned out to be the right thing to do, he thinks. He realizes that seeing her again will only complicate things. Rickham is talking to Cleo. She thinks he was somehow trying to hide his fiancée from her. She says that once he's married, they'll still be a family, but that a royal family doesn't have to live close together like ordinary families. That is why they must adhere so strictly to their roles. She asks not wanting his fiancée until now as a commoner. Suddenly being thrust into such a responsibility can't end well. Rickham thinks she needs someone to guide her. Cleora has long been uneasy, not only because of her words, maybe it's the holy power in him reacting too. But if his suspicions are correct, how could she marry and have children with the former emperor? He believes that after all, they are not his father's children. But only women can be witches. If she's a witch, she could never give birth to Isidore. As for her 3 daughters, that makes them witches too. But only he has a bad feeling about Constance. It's just like Priest Bernardio said. She's just someone who's studied the magic of witches. The only way to find out the truth is to lay hands on the sacred sword and spear. He thinks he'll be the one to lead her. Rickham asks if they're not in similar positions. If he had someone to guide him properly, she assumes this would be his 8th engagement. Of course, the ability to maintain control, not only over yourself, but also over others, is a basic skill for someone who wants to become an empress. But when you have a husband, it's natural for most women to want to rely on him. Cleo says Estella isn't most women. If she can rely on him, it will be a great day. It's not that he didn't know that people can have interpersonal relationships that don't get their values from what one can provide to the other. But it was the only way he could survive all those years in the ilk through ruthless calculation. There are those who can stand up for themselves and those who need protection, those who can be used and those who can be relied upon to use others. He would categorize people in such a way as to calculate how best to use them. In this case, Sir Arthur is someone who can take care of himself and someone he can use. Many people prefer to be left to solve problems without help. This is the very quality that makes Sir Arthur so valuable to him, or at least it was initially. Now he himself is desperate to be needed. It's a very strange feeling for Cleo. After the ceremony is over, Estella sits in the carriage. She asks the prince to leave her alone if he does not have urgent business, for she is not going to eat a lot of goodies and sleep till morning. The prince smiles and bids her farewell. He gives her a small gift as a parting gift. Cleo thinks he should have insisted she open it in this place he wanted to see her face. Maybe he wants to protect that happiness. Sitting in the carriage, the girl realizes that the heels are really not hers. She takes them off, thinking that her feet will fall off. Hans and Jürgen praise her for having done a very good job dancing so long in those shoes. She was also given a package, which the girl was delighted to open. It contained a sandwich with a large steak in it. If the Crown Prince continues to give such gifts to the girl, she might fall in love with him. Hans says that even if it's a political marriage, His Highness will be able to find his way to Estella's heart. The man was sure of it. But Jürgen thought quite differently. In the butler's opinion, the Crown Prince had clearly said that this marriage was a sham. Lady Arthur was just a means to an end, but if she complicated things by falling in love with him for real, it would be bad. The girl said, noticing Jürgen's hesitation, that it was just a joke, and she had no intention of falling in love with His Majesty. The girl also asked the butler to stop acting like O is completely devoted to her. Obviously, this is a pretense that is very annoying. As long as her interests coincide with those of His Highness, she can trust his loyal servant. And that's more than enough. Hans said that the young lady was incredible because she was frank. He did not think it was possible at her age, to which the girl replied that there was nothing incredible about it. The girl offered to practice tomorrow with Sir Heinz. The girl said that the last 3 days had been spent preparing her image for the ceremony, and she was already stiff without any exertion. Heinz then said he should prepare himself to add another loss to his record. The girl didn't understand why the corset was choking her so much. One sandwich shouldn't have made her stomach bigger. While Estella was wondering why she was throwing up, the carriage slowed down abruptly. Not realizing what was happening, Heinz looked out the window, asking what was wrong. One of the knights replied that they were surrounded. Heinz ordered Estella to stay inside, and he went out, telling the men who had surrounded them to show themselves and identify themselves. When she closed her eyes, she realized that about 50 men had dismounted and bared their swords. The girl realized that there were horses with the men. That only meant that the men surrounding them were knights. The girl did not feel the vitality of any of them, as she had felt from Viscount Maynard. Heinz shouted if people knew who was inside the carriage. Jürgen was pounding with fear. Seeing this, Estella asked the butler to hand her the Crown Prince's gift, which lay under the young man's seat. Giving the girl a sword, Jürgen blocked the exit from the carriage with himself. The girl shouted at Jürgen to get out of the way. The butler said he wouldn't leave. Even if the men kill them all, as long as Estella is alive, they will come out victorious. The young lady said that if Jürgen thinks so, they have already lost. Staying in the carriage is a death sentence. The Crown Prince had not dragged the girl into this, so that she could sit idly by and be killed in the carriage. Pushing the man aside, the girl swung the carriage doors open. The young miss stepped out of the carriage. Estella took out the Crown Prince's gift, a sword forged by her grandfather. Her father had been forced to sell it to pay off the family's debts. The girl couldn't imagine taking possession of the sword again. The blade is newly sharpened. That means His Majesty assumed she'd use it. They had lost 2 from the stranger's 9, and the man who didn't wield a sword was the one Estella was thinking of. The girl breathed easier. She had come into the world to dance not in ballrooms, but in battle. And if all 50 people are her enemies, she will slaughter them all. If she were asked if she had the courage to kill people. The girl thinks she still wouldn't be able to give a definite answer, but she's not so helpless that she wouldn't fight back against those who want her dead, and not cowardly enough to run away when necessary. The girl realized that the knights were too slow for her. She saw their every move, so she quickly dispatched each one in her way. Every time she swung her sword, the spirit of battle enveloped the girl. This is what the young lady was born to do. The Crown Prince sits in the ballroom, where people everywhere are talking and whispering about Estella. Hearing all their words, Leo realizes how pompous and smug the nobles are. It's no use starting a conflict. They'll only bully harder. A man enters the room, saying that the only reason Estella was so great was because she was missing something. The yellow-eyed man said that such words hinted at the Crown Prince's lack of honor. After that, the newly arrived bowed before His Majesty, asking for forgiveness. Leo then asked with a smile on his face why Lady Arthur and him were so suitable for each other. With so many faults, he and Estella would need help from fine gentlemen like them. An incompetent liege lord is the blessing of an ambitious vassal. Asking Duke Rounds if His Majesty's assertion was true, the Duke began to speak. The man said he wished His Highness would stop making such sharp jokes. The only support they should be providing is organising and managing grand events that are too big for you. Playing chess, the Duke is about to make a move with his knight. Letting go of the piece, it is intercepted by the girl, saying that her brother prefers to think ahead and attack while the opponent retreats. so rounds should play more aggressively. The man asked the girl why she had come. His Majesty's sister said she came to see if anything was wrong. Leo replied that if something was wrong, he would have told her. Whereupon the young lady said that she had come to interrupt her brother's game. The man asked what for. The girl told Leo that Lady Arthur seemed very sincere. After that, the girl said to take care of his fiancé, as Cleo's sister liked her a lot. The young lady added that it would be quite embarrassing if she died the night after her engagement. Leo tells the Duke not to worry. The Queen girl is for his king. The knight approaches His Majesty and tells him that Viscount Maynard's residence is completely empty. Not only are his own knights absent, but also those Leo had assigned to him. One of the palace guards is also sure that he definitely saw him there before. The knight also said that there were no servants in the residence, as if it had been abandoned a week ago. Cleo tells the knight that they must find Estella's carriage. Knight said a search party has already been dispatched, and they are gathering reinforcements as fast as they can. Turning around to the nobles, Leo told them to stay in their seats. As it turned out, His Majesty had urgent business to attend to. His Majesty had said to let the men enjoy the evening on its own merits. Gathering, Cleo wondered if Constance was going to warn him. Also, the man realized that the Viscount had 30 knights at his disposal. Leo realized that along with the 30 knights, there were 25 other knights that His Majesty had assigned to Maynard, fearing for his well-being. Whatever happened there, at least one had to report everything. His Majesty wondered how he could leave the whole estate empty without Claw finding out. But when you're dealing with Albina, you have to be ready for any kind of trouble. Leo knew there was not a moment to lose. Getting on his horse, the man wanted to ride, but he was stopped by a knight, saying that they hadn't finished assembling His Highness's escort. The man told those to hurry up and catch up with him. Hurrying to the girl, the man thought she was fine. Estella is more than capable of standing up for herself and would not put her life on the line for her subordinates, knowing how much is at stake. Otherwise, His Majesty would never have offered her this contract. Still, for some reason, Leo can't sit idly by. Upon reaching the place where the carriage stopped, the knights saw a pile of corpses. Among them were both Imperial knights and Viscount knights, but they didn't realize where Lady Arthur was. The next moment, they saw a girl fighting with the knights. Struggling, Estella saw that there were only 3 on the left. Blocking the young lady's path, the knight said they were here to protect her. The knight asked the young lady to retreat, but she told him to take his own advice. Shoving the young man away, the girl killed 3 knights. Then she turned around and asked if the Viscount had so much hatred in him. The maddened man spoke his daughter's name and tried to pounce on Estella. Falling to the ground, the girl swung her sword at the man, but she was stopped by His Majesty's sword. Leo said that she had never taken a life before. Every knight the girl slashed was wounded, but still breathing. The girl said it wasn't because she wasn't brave enough to finish them off. Cleo replied that he knows. It's because she doesn't feel the need to do it to stop them. Leo said that doesn't make the girl a coward, but the Viscount his headache. He has done nothing wrong, and if Estella wants to feel the blood on her hands, then let it be the blood of a true villain. If she no longer feels anger toward Viscount Maynard, then let her let Leo take care of it. The girl agrees, saying that she was just planning on knocking him out like the others anyway. Squatting down, Cleo asked the Viscount if he knew who was sitting in front of him. Upon recognizing Cleo, Maynard became furious. The man began to swing at Leo, trying to do some damage to His Majesty. Hands grabbed Maynard's arms to keep him still. It was then that Cleo saw something black on the man's chest. Realizing it was the man, said he had to clear the Viscount. Leo stuck a knife in the man's hand. Cleo then realized that the man had too much spoil on him, even for his power to cleanse. Hans offered to take the Viscount to the temple, but His Majesty refused, saying that Maynard had no heir, and the temple will not leave him alone. They will burn Maynard at the stake for being corrupted by magic and confiscate all his wealth. There won't be a single brick left of his once great house, so Leo would rather not give the temple that pleasure. Cleo said to get the carriage ready so that if he could clear Maynard, he could be taken to the temple. Leo decided to start with the chest. If luck smiled, the Viscount would live. His Majesty decided to ask Estella for a favour. Knowing that the church will want to investigate this when the time comes, The girl needs to be careful what she says. It would be fine if Estella said the man ambushed her, but if they want to cover up the corruption with magic, the church doesn't need to know that a Lunardic knife was used. If Leo stuck the knife into the Viscount's chest, the man might die from blood loss. The butler who was in the carriage earlier said that His Highness could say that Jurgen did it all. Viscount Maynard is not a knight, which meant that if they said that Jurgen had stabbed the man during the fight, no one would suspect anything. After thanking Jurgen, Cleo decided to stab Viscount in the chest through his clothes. By stabbing the man was able to clean himself. Then His Majesty said that the Viscount should be taken to the temple immediately, accompanied by the best knights. As the carriage with Maynard and the knights began to leave, Leo held out his hand to Estella, suggesting that they return together. The girl said that Leo appeared very timely, and the pain in her legs was killing her. His Majesty tried to lift Estella, not expecting it. Lady Arthur elbowed him in the chest, asking for forgiveness. She explained that it was just a reflex. The man said that the girl had sharp elbows, whereupon she suggested that he change his jacket. If an elbow can hurt His Majesty so badly, it's scary to imagine what a sword will do. Leo asked if she didn't realize how strong she was. Determined to be mocked, Estella said that it was His Highness who was weak. Cleo replied that he had been accused of many things, but never of weakness, and by the girl's standards, only a golem of steel could be a strong man. The young lady said that was too much. She suggested that a man should be as strong as her father. Leo had said he was just trying to help when she had mentioned that her legs hurt. And now, lifting the girl up, the man put her on the horse. Estella said that there was no need to make life difficult for herself by appealing to His Majesty. The girl's dress was half covered in blood. Leo asked what he should do. Send his bride away in some carriage he finds by the roadside. Wasn't riding a horse better than standing and waiting for the new carriage of their palace? The girl asked if she could ask the man a question. Leo did not mind. Whereupon the girl asked if he knew Estella the lad. After waiting a pause, Cleo said he did. Estella thought His Majesty really liked boys. Leo lifted the girl up, wrapped his arms around her waist. This is beyond childish, and Leo doesn't know that Estella is actually a girl. Lady Arthur wondered if she would be punished for fraud if His Majesty knew the truth. She was brought out of her thoughts by a question from Cleo, who was trying to find out what she was thinking. Turning to the man, the lady said she had no intention of suing the man. Leo didn't understand what that was supposed to mean. Estella said that she thought they might have different tastes for some things. The couple noticed that it was already dawn. The girl realized that she wanted to sleep very much, because it had been a long day, after which she just fell asleep on the guy's chest. Before sunrise, rumors of the ambush had already spread throughout Alzen. Grief at the loss of his daughter clouded Viscount Maynard's mind, and he attacked the Crown Prince's fiancée. It was the spiciest gossip the town had heard in a long time. Upon waking up, Constance decided not to apply makeup. She thought she deserved a rest after yesterday. Albina said that the girl could not afford to look careless, to which the woman's daughter replied that she had nothing to do anyway. Albina's servant brought her a white robe, which was thrown over the woman's shoulders. Then she turned, asking what Cleo was up to. Constance said the man was holed up in his office. Something had happened yesterday. The Empress did not understand why she was not aware of what had happened. Then the servant said that her daughter had not seen fit to inform Her Majesty. After all, it was only a small nuisance. Albina said whether it was the Viscount or a 6-year-old street kid, an attempt on the life of the future Empress implies treason. The Empress said for Constance to give Lady Arthur the necklace and her condolences. Treatment with holy magic throughout the night has paid off, and the men have managed to save Viscount's life. For now, however, the man remains unconscious. A young man present in the room said that it won't be long before someone declares Maynard treasonous after all. They also learned that Marquis Hasif had spent the night at Count Nagran's residence, while Countess Nagran was in Empress Albina's twilight room. Archibald's clubhouse also had lights on all night. There was also a constant flow of people in Caleb's mansion. This incident was intended to destabilize the already fragile balance that Cleo had established. After ascending the throne, his original supporters consisted of the prestigious Archibald Club, but after his brides, starting with the Duke of Offel's daughter, began to die one by one. The relationship faltered, and his influence over them naturally declined. The nouveau riche Calebs thought this was their chance. But because their family names lacked the same prestige as traditional nobles, they could not offer their daughters as potential brides. The minor houses united under the wing of Viscount Maynard, with the intention of keeping both the Archibalds and the Calebs in check. That is, the execution of the Viscount would deprive His Majesty of all hope of their support. However, there is also no argument for keeping him alive. Jurgen said that His Highness has no other choice. We should execute Viscount. Leo decided to wait for Maynard to awaken. They need to at least get a statement from the man and consult with Count Arthur. If the Viscount cannot provide evidence of Empress Albina's involvement in this case, or anything that might exonerate him, then they cannot argue that he had no intention of harming Lady Arthur. Even if Viscount survives, he can't go into politics. Jurgen said that no matter what, they needed to find someone to replace Viscount. The butler then asked if Leo would summon Count Arthur to the capital. His Majesty said it would buy them some time. Besides, there are things he needs to discuss with the Earl. Now they need to decide what they can do immediately. Jurgen decided that they should seal the residence. And the Viscount's fortune, as well as tracking down his servants. It's about the castle and the business in Semonide. If Maynard doesn't wake up in a couple of days, they'll consider another course of action, Jurgen added, saying that the longer this dragged on, the worse His Highness's situation would become. Perhaps Leo should have let him die. One of those present asked if the Viscount woke up and testified. Wouldn't that change everything? Then Cleo said that without proof, his words were worthless. Not only Albina, but the Archibalds and Calebs would want to sink their teeth in. After what His Majesty said, the man said they would need proof. Leo said there would be no proof. He realized that Albina and Constance had taken care of that. The man said they should proceed on the assumption that they would be surrounded by enemies on all sides. Just as Jurgen had said, if that didn't work, they should kill the Viscount. Ebenezer was told to make a list of pros and cons of keeping the Viscountship, depending on whether he survived or died. Leo then asked Jurgen who would inherit the title if the Viscount died. Without thinking for long, the butler decided. Jurgen thinks Sir Gerald Lennox, baronet in the Laurent civil service, might inherit the title. Cleo said to find out everything the butler can about him, but to be careful, and the workers must rest before they begin their work. Leo asked what the chances were that Viscount Maynard would regain consciousness. Bernardo then said that he was not sure that the man would have the strength to do that. Cleo asked if the priest could say such a thing. Then the man said that His Highness had asked for an honest answer. Every night, the Vicomte would wish to go to sleep and never wake up again. Maynard himself had confessed this to Bernard more than once. Leo said he felt sorry for the man, then said that Bernard might think it was selfish. The man said that Cleo was being selfish. The only reason His Highness has not executed the Viscount is because he wants to show the other nobles with what zeal he will try to protect the man who has sworn allegiance to him. Leo said he didn't deny it, but he felt responsible for what happened to the man. The Vicomte was one of the few people Cleo respected. The man had never been greedy, yet he had only gotten into this mess for his daughter. The Viscount had sworn eternal loyalty to His Highness, Crown Prince Cleo, and he was willing to do anything for him to ascend the throne and become emperor. In making the promise, the man asked for one thing. He wanted Leo to threaten Inas for as long as he could, after which he asked to fulfill his duty as his daughter's fiancé when his dreams were shattered. The Viscount asked to protect his daughter at all costs. Cleo's duty was to protect Inas, but he couldn't stop her from becoming a witch. His Majesty doesn't think he has the moral right to blame the Viscount. Even when the man learned of his daughter's fate, he did not become indignant, but simply said that he understood, hiding his true feelings. And for that matter, His Majesty is the only one to blame for weakening his heart enough to fall victim to the witch's curse. Bernard said His Highness killed the fake to protect the honour of the real Inas. Viscount Maynard knew that, so he continued to do what he could for His Majesty. Leo said that these words did not comfort him, and he would still prefer the man to remain alive. Life is always better than death. His Majesty's servant bursts into the room, saying that Lady Arthur is still asleep, Then Leo asks the servant to gather 100 roses from the garden at Piella's palace and make a bouquet of them, and to bring her to her chambers a peach pie prepared personally by His Majesty. Bernard suggested that Leo visit the girl personally, to which Cleo replied that he had no time because of meetings and audiences. Then Bernard said that they would discuss what had happened last night, and then offered to replace His Majesty with Jürgen. No one would judge His Highness for wanting to be near his fiancée after such an incident. Leo said Estella's strong. She'll be all right. Cleo won't. It's clear to everyone that His Highness is unable to think of anything else. In the 2 hours he's been here, they've already sent an unhappy messenger to her 4 times. It's already awkward for the servant to show up in the girl's chambers again. Leo said he wanted to make sure that the girl would be informed if anything happened. Bernard said that Claw had already sent snacks and flowers. The question of whether Estella was awake was just an excuse. If he was so concerned about the girl, perhaps His Highness should visit Lady Arthur himself. Leo wasn't sure if the girl would like it. Bernard asked, since when did His Highness worry about the feelings of others? Even though her character is strong, and Estella is able to survive this shock on her own, it is still necessary to give the girl his support. But only if Leo really intends to take her as a life partner. Cleo said he was probably overworked lately, forgetting the basics. Of course, it would be much better if he visited her himself. His Majesty understood why he felt so strange. He didn't want a relationship supported only by a 30 million gold contract. He wanted a strong partnership with mutual communication. For that to happen, he needed to start acting seriously and become open-minded. Leo realized that the girl was less wary of him. Otherwise, she would not have fallen asleep so peacefully in a man's arms. He must do everything possible to prove the seriousness of his intentions, although it would be much more difficult to win her love, much more complicated than simply offering to be brothers in arms. Waking up, the girl realized that she had slept for a long time, realizing that it was already noon. Placing a hand on her clothes, the girl thought about how they were softer than usual. Abruptly opening her eyes, Estella jerked out of bed, not realizing when she had gotten into bed and who had changed her clothes. When she looked around, she saw a large number of bouquets of flowers, and then she thought she was really dead. Lady Arthur didn't understand how she could have stayed awake while people were bringing all this in. She wouldn't let them get away with it, despite her fatigue. They had also washed off her makeup. Had she really been exposed? The only person in the house who thinks the girl is a man, the Countess. If she was the one who changed Estella's clothes. After opening the door, a servant looked in, saying that the girl was finally awake. After which she said that the lady didn't look so good. Maybe the girl needed more sleep. The young lady said she was fine, but asked what all those flowers meant. Karen explained that the flowers had been sent by the Crown Prince. He hoped that the flowers would make the girl feel better when she woke up. The servant also said that she had always known that the Crown Prince was a kind man, but she had no idea how nice he could be. Estella asked who had changed her clothes yesterday. Then Karen said that the girl had been changed by Countess Bartholomew. The girl realized that she was finished. Then the servant continued, saying that the young lady didn't remember it because they fell asleep, but His Highness carried her in his arms all the way to the bed. Whereupon the servant said that he had washed the girl himself. The Countess was greatly surprised to see Estella's bloody dress. She cut it all off with scissors, the corset and the rest, not realizing that the Crown Prince was still there. He was extremely embarrassed and left immediately. Karen had never seen a man blush so much. The girl realized that the maids considered her a girl. Why not trust everything to them? The chances that the Countess hadn't guessed anything were practically zero. Estella realized she was still wearing her underwear. The Countess was probably careful not to touch Lady Arthur in the groin area. However, just a glance at her breasts was enough to guess her real sex. After that, Estella realized that with such breasts, no one would ever think that she was a woman. Not understanding the girl's behavior, Karen assumed that she had suffered a severe shock last night, so she said she would return as soon as the young lady's bathwater was ready. But in the meantime, the maid asked the girl to get some rest. Estella flopped down on the bed. The girl wondered if she had succeeded. She survived, just like the Crown Prince wanted her to, and didn't kill people she shouldn't have. The girl wanted to get stronger, to fight for real, wanted to win. She didn't realize she had so much ambition in her. Estella thought that all she needed was money and good food. Did the girl's father really want her to live not just as a noble lady, but to continue fighting until the end with a sword in her hands? The young lady worries every day that she will be exposed. She should never have left the city guard. A maid enters Estella's chambers, saying someone wants to see Lady Arthur. This man is Tyson Solidian. The girl told him to tell him that she was asleep, but he was willing to wait until she woke up. Karen asked if she should tell her that the girl wasn't feeling well. Estella realized that Tyson never does anything without a good reason. Perhaps he had important information. The lady asked telling Tyson that she would meet him after her bath. Estella told the maids that she would not wear a wig today, so that everyone would think that her hair had been cut off during the ambush, than to constantly risk a wig causing trouble. Also, the girl asked not to tighten her corset too much. Tyson stood in the hallway. Turning around, he saw Lady Arthur coming down. The boy asked what was wrong with the girl's hair. The girl was confused, afraid he would recognize her with her short hair. She thought she was safe, since he hadn't guessed anything before. Tyson also said that the girl has a pale complexion, explaining that she was shocked yesterday. Estella then said that she was just tired. The lady was embarrassed to tell the man that she was just bad at applying makeup. The man said that he should have escorted the Viscount out in person, and then report back to his superiors. Estella thought that the boy was not in love with her after all. She didn't understand why Tyson looked so angry, as if he was ready to rush into battle at any moment. The lady figured he'd come to ask for a workout. After hearing how she'd massacred 30 knights, Estella told the man to calm down. The man switched to yelling, asking if His Highness was neglecting her and why he left her alone today. The girl said that the Crown Prince is a busy man. Afterward, she asked him to let go of her hand. The man said he knew Estella put up with a lot for Estin's sake, but did she need to keep putting up with it? Tyson had seen the pain on the lady's face since yesterday. Estin is not the kind of man who uses people for his own gain. The girl told the man to be more polite and let go of her hand. Tyson apologized to the girl, saying that he only wished that she was safe and to be happy. Tyson said he thought His Highness would be able to provide all the conditions, and if Estella was content, it would also be enough for him to simply swear allegiance to her as an imperial knight. However, the man asked if the girl needed to be with the prince. The girl did not understand what the imperial knight was saying, but Tyson continued, saying that he knew that breaking the engagement would do great damage to the girl's honor, but it was about her safety. The boy asked if the girl could change her mind. Tyson also said that he is far from perfect, but if Estella lets him, he will never let her go. Yes, he will never match the Crown Prince, but he will be at the full disposal of the Arthur family, and also the knight will be able to persuade the lady's brother. Estella thought that the guy had finally lost his mind, not knowing what he was talking about. The girl was already starving, and now she was also dizzy. Taking Lady Arthur's hand, Tyson kissed it. But then Leo burst into the corridor, telling the knight to let go of the girl's hand. Standing with flowers in his hands, His Majesty glared angrily at Tyson. Cleo told Estella to come over to him. Estella praised the young man in her head, realizing that he was good at portraying anger, but there was no need to be so believable. Leaning over Estella, Leo asked Tyson if he was proposing to his fiancée. Tyson said he was. Afterward, His Majesty said the guy is crazy. The knight said any normal man would go crazy, especially after his favorite woman is attacked and her hair is cut off. Estella was shocked. Supposedly any girl's head should go spinning when the Crown Prince and the Empire's greatest young knight are fighting for her. But one of them likes guys, and the other is her friend from a long time ago, and the girl's head is already hurting from stress. Leo told Tyson that he doesn't know anything about Estella. Tyson said that His Majesty couldn't even protect the girl, and left alone tonight. My lady has a strong heart and will to get through these difficulties, but she does not have to put up with such treatment. Leo then asked if Tyson thought it was acceptable to pressure her to break the engagement, knowing full well the damage it would do to her reputation and honor. Tyson said that at least he would not abandon the girl like his majesty. Whereupon the knight said that if my lady wished, he would never leave her. The girl realized that the guy completely lost his head. Previously, he criticized her for lack of ambition, and now he is trying hard to destroy his own career. Angry, Leo decided to throw down the gauntlet, challenging the young man to a battle. But the man was interrupted by Estella, who caught the glove, then told them not to do it. They are going too far. After that, the girl asked His Highness if he was really going to challenge the guy to a duel. Leo said that the only one who had gone too far here was Sir Cerlidon. Then His Majesty said that the Marquis of Caden would be held responsible for what had happened. Tyson said he acted as his heart told him to. Now he would gladly do whatever they saw fit, be it a duel or his resignation. Whatever the case, Tyson is a grown man, and this has nothing to do with his father. The girl stood in the middle of the men, telling them both to stop. Estella said she knew that Tyson's proposal came from a pure heart, chivalrous nobility, and concern for the girl, but she had to point out that this rashness made her doubt the young man's pure intentions. The girl has heard many vilifying comments since she agreed to this engagement, and if it wasn't for His Highness's unique situation, she's sure she would have heard many more. If she decides to drop everything, this will be the prince's 8th failed engagement, and for the rest of her life, she would be criticized. Tyson then asked if there was a better way than a second marriage to end the criticism, so she didn't have to continue to stay in Ulzen. The girl then asked if the guy wanted her to explain to her brother how he refused, giving up his promising knightly future because of him and his sister. Estella appreciates the knight's goodwill towards her and the depth of his friendship with her brother, but such compassion and friendship are not enough to risk his life. She doesn't know what fantasies Tyson might be writing about her, but he must know that she has allied herself with the Crown Prince in pursuit of her own goals. Goals that Sir Cerlidon will not be able to help the girl achieve. Whereupon Estella asked that the young man leave. Tyson said he spoke sincerely and did so solely out of concern for her happiness and well-being. He never intended to make her uncomfortable. After apologizing, the man left. Leo hugged the girl tightly from the back. Estella reminded him that Tyson had left, to which the man said he knew it. The girl said that there was no need to continue the spectacle. Leo said that it wasn't a performance at all. It was his way of expressing his affection. The lady threatened His Majesty that if he did not let her go, she would throw the bouquet on the floor, to which Cleor said he would scatter the fallen petals on the girl's bed. Leo wondered who Tyson was to the girl. After a long conversation, the man asked why the girl didn't fall for his feelings. Then Estella said that she and the young man were different people. Tyson, unlike His Majesty, does not like men. He is in love with the girl because he considers her a woman. Leo shouldn't compare situations. Coughing, the man hugged the girl even tighter. The girl asked to be released, but the man made a condition that she had to call him by his name. Calling His Majesty by name, the girl blushed, hiding her face in the flowers she was holding. The girl asked if that was enough, and Cleor, unclasping his hands, let the girl go, saying that was quite enough. Leo says he doesn't want to lose to Sir Cerlidon, so he asks to be called by his name. The man then points to the makeup, saying it should be washed off. Cleor sits in the room and waits patiently for the girl to come out of the door. She appears, showing off her costume, and asks the prince if he likes it. The girl wonders if it is possible in principle to walk around like this without causing judgment or displeasure. The prince replies with a slight smile, wondering if her pride was trying to get her to wear some new dress. The girl, feeling confident, explains that she always dresses like that for ball practice. After all, she doesn't need to hide her true identity from His Highness. The prince notices that she looks great when she is dressed up, but adds that it suits her much better to dress the way she herself likes. The girl smiles back and suggests that the prince just eat. They decide to have lunch outside in front of the fountain, enjoying the warm day. When they sit down at the table, the girl, seeing the variety of dishes, cannot contain her delight. She notices that the appetizers on the table make up for the past week. Grateful, she expresses her appreciation to Cleor for feeding her so well. The prince reflects that a lady's food usually looks meagre and unsatisfactory. His own food is always good, he thinks, but he also realizes that Estella must be thin and pale. She practically starves herself to meet those standards. Estella stabs a piece of steak on her fork, at which point the prince asks her if she's curious about what's going on. The girl asks him exactly what he means. The prince clarifies that he would like to discuss the Viscount and how they are going to handle the situation. The lady asks the prince to tell her all the details. The prince agrees and says that he has not come to dine for nothing, but to discuss important matters. There is a pause between them for a moment, after which the lady insists that he tell her everything he knows. The prince reports that the Viscount is alive, but all the knights involved in the incident are still unconscious. Now Viscount is accused of treason, and cracks have appeared in the balance of power among the aristocracy. The girl, reflecting to herself, cannot help but wonder what is happening. She says that Albina's faction, who wants her dead more than anyone else, is calling it treason. The prince continues to explain that regardless of whether or not he is recognized as crown prince, they are trying to undermine his power by burying Viscount Maynard. The girl asks thoughtfully what would happen if Count Arthur came on stage to make peace. The prince begins to awkwardly explain something, but is interrupted by the girl and continues her thought. She suggests that the prince ask the earl about the possibility of making peace with compensation. Estella thinks that since she herself was not hurt, perhaps this will help settle the conflict. She adds that if it really is a family feud, there's no point in the prince getting involved. It might make the accusation of adultery less meaningful. The prince thoughtfully agrees that this is a good idea. He realizes that it's hard to decide which category to put Count Arthur in, the nouveau riche or the traditional noble families. The Archibalds value history and blood, while the Calebs seek wealth and power. The question is how to define what true nobility is. Cleor, turning to the girl, asks if she would mind getting involved in all this political intrigue. The girl, upon reflection, realizes that her opinion may have a significant impact on the outcome of the case. She realizes that there are difficult choices to be made. The prince watches her reaction carefully, waiting for a response. He realizes that her participation in these matters may significantly change the balance of power in the aristocracy. The girl pulls herself together and decides that she is ready to participate and help the prince in this difficult situation. A peach pie is placed on the table. Cleo says that this pie was made especially for Estella at Piella Palace and asks how it tastes. The girl replies that the pie is divine. She adds that if it weren't for Jürgen, she would have been able to fully enjoy their chocolate cake. The prince says that after the coronation, she will have time to choose a chef for the imperial palace. For now, she can continue tasting the culinary masterpieces of the various chefs so that it will be easier to choose later. Estella realizes that this is an important decision. Estella asks if she can ask one more question and is granted permission. She wonders if the prince is really going to drag the Marquis of Caden into the Thyssen affair. Cleo asks if she'd prefer he didn't. Estella replies that yes, she did. She explains that if Caden's father had heard the pure facts, he would have intervened. But she has categorically rejected Tyson, so there's no need for that. The prince asks if she's very concerned about this. Estella replies that Caden is her friend. He always said she was unambitious. He rose to Imperial Knight and clashed with the Crown Prince. She asks if he seems hopeless to the prince. The prince says her safety is more important. Estella wonders how the prince has such strong feelings for her, since they have only met 3 times. The prince explains that time and long acquaintance are not as important as truly understanding each other. Their conversation is overheard by a certain guy who realizes what they mean to each other. Estella says she needs to think more seriously about it later. She looks at the prince, who is sitting with his eyes closed, and realizes that he has been up all night. She finds him much more handsome with his eyes closed, and even better when his mouth is closed too. Estella wonders if he is hiding something or someone. At that moment, Elendia appears in the courtyard and addresses the girl. Estella gestures for Elendia to be quieter. Elendia is surprised that the Crown Prince fell asleep in such an open place. Estella asks if she needs her. Elendia informs her that Duchess Rickham has come to see Estella. The girl interjects in surprise. Elendia says that the Duchess claims to have come to comfort Estella. The girl assumes that the Duchess wants to see if she's alive. Elendia says that everyone knows that no harm was done to Estella. Estella decides to find out what the Duchess wants. Elendia wonders if Estella can feign weariness and remain elegant. Estella realizes that the Duchess has come for a reason. The Countess promises to send the Duchess away, and Estella thanks her. Estella turns to the prince and asks if he is awake. She informs him that Countess Bartholomew has left to meet the Duchess of Rickham. Cleor fearfully asks if he fell asleep in the open air. He thinks it doesn't make sense. Estella notices that he is irritable in his sleep. The prince apologizes and asks if he was rude. The girl tells him not to worry and asks him to show her someone who will be happy to see them. The prince is a little embarrassed that he fell asleep to begin with. He asks if the Duchess has really arrived and if Estella will talk to her. Estella thinks that meeting with the Duchess immediately after everything that has happened does not make sense. The prince asks if it is not too difficult for her to change for the meeting. Estella replies that she is too tired to do anything. The prince laughs. Elendia returns and reports that the Duchess has left. Estella rejoices and thanks the Countess. Elendia says that the Duchess left a gift. Estella takes the box containing the necklace. The Countess explains that it is a gift from Empress Albina. It is a moonstone necklace, and it is very popular with women. Estella wonders if the Duchess is mocking her by choosing moonstone over diamonds or sapphires. The prince asks if she will wear the necklace. Estella says she has no one to brag to. The prince understands her. The more Estella looks at the necklace, the more uncomfortable she becomes. After that day, Estella was granted a week's rest. She used the time to write a furious letter of complaint on behalf of Count Arthur, addressed to the Viscount and the Imperial Palace. Estella sits at the table and is deep in thought. She thinks that her brother Estin should not be in Alzen. Writing in two different handwritings, her own and Estin's, is proving to be quite difficult. Estella ponders how hard it is to keep it up. She understands why the Crown Prince orders messengers to send letters through different places before they reach his office. This creates an appearance of plausibility, and Estella realizes how important it is to maintain this illusion. Soon Jürgen is called as a witness. New men arrive at the mansion to replace Sir Hans and the other wounded knights. The mansion fills with noise and bustle, and each day it becomes busier and more crowded. Elendia turns to Estella and announces the arrival of the new jewels. Estella, immersed in her thoughts, is distracted and looks at Elendia. Every 3 days, His Majesty sends Estella jewellery and flowers, showing his generosity. Estella is worried about her wastefulness. She thinks she should live more modestly. But Cleor's words about his enormous income reassure her. He explains that his annual income from the state treasury is more than 200 billion gold pieces. Estella can't believe her ears when she hears such incredible amounts of money. She wonders how many zeros there are in the number 2 billion. Cleor, noticing her surprise, asks if she is impressed. Estella, still surprised, answers in the affirmative. Now, knowing Cleor's finances, she feels less guilty about her spending. Cleor notices that her words don't sound very sincere. Estella, for her part, jokingly asks why his wigs are so gaudy if he is so rich. Cleor is silent for a moment, as if pondering her question. Estella returns to the present moment, seeing a number of envelopes on the table in front of her. They are invitations from almost every noble house in Alzen, and Elendia notes the number of them. Elendia is sure that among those who want to meet Estella are people with different motives. Some are just curious and want to get to know her better. After His Highness left the reception to save her, the interest in Estella has increased significantly. Elendia proposes to ignore more than half of the letters because the status of the senders is too low for a direct response. She plans to have the maids write template responses to these letters. Estella agrees to this suggestion. Elendia continues the conversation and informs her that the maid Irene has recently left and needs to be replaced. Estella recognizes the importance of this. She is not always comfortable being surrounded by people who work for someone else. She needs someone who is solely at her disposal. Estella shares with Elendia that she has a suitable candidate. She is not looking for a general servant, but someone for personal service. She needs someone she can trust completely and who will focus on her needs and concerns. Elendia listens attentively to Estella and agrees with her choice. she realizes how important it is to have a reliable and loyal assistant. Elendia promises to help Estella find the right person to fulfill all her requirements and expectations. Elendia protests. She thinks it is highly unusual for the daughter of a noble family to have a personal servant. She fears that people will become suspicious and doubts whether she can trust this man with her secrets. Estella reassures Elendia that there will be no cause for suspicion, especially regarding a possible affair. She is sure that no one will make a big deal out of it. Time passes, and Estella and Elendia continue to read the invitation letters. Estella notices that no matter how much they read, the pile of letters does not get smaller. She is already tired of this endless process. A servant enters the room and informs Countess Elendia of the arrival of a guest who has presented an invitation from Count Arthur. Estella is happily surprised that the guest has arrived so quickly and asks her to bring him in. Elendia asks if it would be better to receive the guest in the parlour, but Estella insists that this room will be fine and asks Elendia to leave them alone. However, the Countess prefers not to leave. Estella explains that this guest is a man invited by Count Arthur. After some pause and fear in her eyes, Elendia agrees, stands up, and bids the lady farewell. Estella worries, wondering if her guest will recognize her. She feels uneasy and watches as he is led through the corridors. The guest feels anxious too and tries to calm herself. When the servant opens the door and says he may enter, the guest sees Estella and bows. He is surprised to see Sir Arthur and Estella standing in front of him. He expresses his amazement loudly. Estella immediately asks him to be quieter so that no one will hear. But the guest does not calm down the first time, and she has to ask him again to stop shouting for fear that someone will hear. At the screams, the knights rush into the room, thinking Estella is in danger. They grab the man, start yelling at him, and at the same time ask if my lady is all right. Estella, annoyed by their interference, asks them to leave, but one of the knights thinks it is too dangerous and insists on his presence. Her irritation grows, and she repeats her demand to leave. The man, trying to understand the knight's behaviour, explains that he and Estella are longtime friends, and he was just surprised by her beauty. He assures them that their talk embarrasses the lady. He tries to lie that his wife flew often, but he is interrupted, and one of the knights turns to Estella. Eventually, the knight recognises his excitement and advises him to be careful, for Lady Arthur is now an important person. The man promises to consider this in the future and thanks the knights for their service. Slightly angry but reassured, the knights leave the room, leaving Estella and her guest alone. After the knights leave, the man turns to Estella and asks if she can put the knife away. Estella refuses and explains that she is angry and her condition is due to the fact that Sir Estin has never been like this. She tells him that these soldiers are supposed to be under her command, but they don't take her seriously because of her gender. A man is surprised and asks what it means to be Lady Arthur. He recalls her words about her new life and her decision to try her hand at being a woman. Estella addresses him, reminding him that the Crown Prince has experienced 7 failed engagements and the 8th bride must be special. A guest wonders why Estella needs a knife. She says her new life is dangerous, though he thought she was exaggerating. He heard about the ambush and says he thought it was a one-off. Estella explains that the ambush isn't the only danger. She says she'll be fine, but still prefers to avoid poisons. The man remarks that Sir Estin has always had a talent for survival. He says that he knew she didn't quite want to work, and that's why she's in the city guard. Estella replies that it's not because she's lazy. The man knows that she loves freedom. Estella interrupts him, adding that it is because she is a woman. The man does not pay attention to this at first, but then he realizes that she is right and remains in a stupor, trying to understand what is going on. Estella reiterates that she is a woman. She says that regardless of her appearance and behavior, she remains herself. The man remarks that the dress has made her more ambitious, and Estella agrees. She says she came here for a reason. Her main goal is to earn 30 million gold pieces for a glorious retirement. The man notices that she has really changed. Estella says she needs him to accomplish her goal. The man recalls that she told him a big secret before offering him the job, and asks if she would throw him in the dungeon if he refused. Estella replies that he wouldn't have come here if he wasn't ready to accept her offer. She admits that she has 2 problems. The first is that no one can find out that she is really Estin. She says that only the Crown Prince Countess Bartholomew, Priest Bernardio, and Sir Freuden know her true identity. A man asks if anyone knows that Sir Estin is a woman. Estella wonders if it's a crime to deceive the imperial family. She thinks that being a woman is better than having a man become an empress. The man wonders if he wants to ask her something. Estella explains that if she had lived her whole life as a noble lady, the crown prince would never have discovered her talent. The man agrees and says that whatever the truth is, Sir Estin is still here. She says she knew she could count on him. The man asks if she needs someone to work for her personally. Estella confirms and says she needs to hire a new maid. She recalls that he talked about his wife doing similar work when she was younger. He bragged about how well-mannered she was and how she could keep secrets. The man doubts whether his wife is suitable for the role. Estella says she needs a suitable maid to watch over her and keep her secrets. She doesn't want to trust Prince Cleo's men completely, as they are not her people. The man agrees, but notes that if his wife becomes her maid, her past might be checked. He says that his wife and Sir Estin have never met, and Estella offers a story. She says that you could say that his wife has been doing chores since she was a little girl. She mentions that she was often left with neighbours, and you could just say that was his wife. Estella says that although she has a noble surname, she lived like everyone else on Lovecombe Street. She is sure that it is impossible to know much about the lives of ordinary people, and this will protect them from being checked. The man thinks about it and agrees that in that case his wife will have a more dignified position than the other maids. He thanks Estella for her generosity and willingness to help. Estella also says she wants him to work under her. She promises that he will be well compensated for this. The man is surprised and asks what kind of compensation we are talking about. Estella knows that his grandson dreams of becoming a knight. She promises to teach him the swordsmanship techniques of the Arthur family. She asks if this is a worthy offer, and the man is impressed by her generosity. The man thanks Estella and says he is ready to follow her until death. Estella asks him to hold off on thanking her, for she is doing no more than she needs to. He says that his grandson will only learn what he is capable of. Estella explains to the man that his grandson can become a knight if he agrees to her terms. She is willing to teach him the ancient art of swordsmanship of the Arthur family, which is a great gift in itself. She asks if he considers this a worthy offer. The man expresses his admiration in return. For a commoner like him to be able to learn Arthur bloodline swordsmanship is an unprecedented honour. He couldn't even dream of it. His voice is filled with gratitude, and he assures Estella that he will be faithful to her for the rest of his life. However, Estella asks the man to take the time to thank her. She explains that her offer is generous but appropriate. She says that her training will unlock his grandson's abilities, but no more. Estella offers to start with a 5-year contract. As for remuneration, Estella offers an annual salary of 8,000 gold pieces. She is sure his wife will be happy with that amount. The man agrees, saying it is more than enough. He adds that he is willing to work without pay. The man insists that it will be enough for him to simply cover the expenses and education of his grandson. Estella, however, is convinced that such dangerous work must be rewarded handsomely. She is adamant that she will pay as much as she has offered. The man falls silent, realizing the seriousness of her words. He realizes that Estella is determined to provide him with a fair wage for his labor. His respect for her grows. Estella hands him a purse of money to cover his moving expenses. In addition, she hands him a small chest of jewelry. She tells him that he can exchange these jewels for anything to celebrate with the town guard. Seeing this generosity, the man cannot contain his delight. The man blurts out that Estella is incredibly generous, but then he asks what happens if he gets mugged on the way. Estella remarks with slight irony that a veteran city guard should be able to defend himself. However, if he is so concerned, he can leave the chest here. The man promises that he will protect the chest of jewels with the price of his life. Estella begins to laugh as she sees how quickly he changes his mind. She admires his determination and loyalty, which is again evident in his words. At that moment, a voice calls Estella from behind the door. It is the maid. She enters the room holding an envelope. The maid tells her that a letter has arrived from Sir Solidian, an important person with whom Estella is in touch. Estella looks at the letter and says she can go, but there's still no way it's falling behind. The girl adds that she's not going to show her anything, so there's no need to stay. Besides, she's still talking to her guest. The maid declares with bloated cheeks that Estella is mean and leaves the room. Estella says quietly to herself that the maid is a big pain in the ass. She notices the man's admiring gaze and asks why he is looking at her like that. He wonders if that letter in the envelope came from Thyssen, asks if he knows about her secret, but gets a negative answer. When asked why then Thyssen sends letters, Estella replies that he has fallen in love with her. The man remarks that anyone who was familiar with her would recognize her. The girl objects, saying that Tyson has no idea. Every time he sees her as a woman, she loses her mind. However, the man disagrees. He believes that Thyssen is of an unconventional orientation, and he is not the only one. Everyone was convinced that Thyssen is in love with Sir Arthur. The girl's face turns very red, and a frightened expression appears. She interjects again, asking him to stop saying such stupid things and to leave. The man says that he is a handsome guy, and that she could have made a much worse choice. With a chuckle, he adds that she shouldn't even start talking about Thyssen's fencing talent. He asks if women don't like men with pure hearts. Estella is a little pissed off. He asks her to ignore his words, as he is talking to himself, and then says goodbye and leaves. When he's gone, the girl sits down in a chair. She thought she was going to die of embarrassment and exhales with relief. The lady remembers the letter and proceeds to open it, wondering what he wrote about this time. The first was a sincere apology for his actions. In the letter, he was terribly sorry for any offence he may have caused her. Estella realises that the very least she owes him is an answer. Next, he writes that she really shouldn't grab the lady's wrist. Soon he begins to tell her about popular topics among women of high society. Apparently he asked someone else about them first and started praising her swordsmanship. Estella is embarrassed just reading this. On the other hand, the Crown Prince used to send little cards with gifts. In one of those, he wrote that the palace cat had slept on him. Estella really didn't understand why he felt the need to tell her such insignificant things. Even the most powerful man in the empire is a slave to the whims of a cat. Though she thinks the snacks he sends do taste delicious, she wishes she could spend all her days until the end of her contract. But against her wishes, a flower party looms on the horizon. The flower party is traditionally held by the highest-ranking unmarried woman in Alpenstein. Thanks to its large scale and the prestige of its host, it attracts many guests, not just single women. And the hostess of this year's party is none other than Princess Ardina, who is famous for her long absence from high society. Already at the party, everyone is talking about something. The talk about the prince's fiancé stands out. Some wondered if she wasn't pointless, since she was destined to die like everyone else. Others said that the Crown Prince had only gone to save her, because losing another bride would be too problematic. The girl said she still felt sorry for her, suggesting that Estella be left alone. The interlocutor wonders why. The girl says she heard that they had already agreed to divorce, sometime after the coronation. The other knew that there was no way the Crown Prince could love a woman like her. The other also says she heard that Sir Solidian also regularly exchanges letters with Estella, and wonders if it could be true. They don't even try to hide it. He was probably quite close to her brother, wondering if it was possible that they were just exchanging news about him. They heard that the Crown Prince was very angry when he heard about him. Another lady approaches them. She says she is close to Caden's family and is sure there is nothing wrong with it. She says that he may seem indifferent, but he is actually a very caring man. It's in his spirit to take care of his friend's sister, especially when she has no one else to rely on. Another lady says she's only seen her at the engagement ceremony, so she knows almost nothing about her, but she must be surprisingly charming if you talk to her directly. The ladies assume she won't be coming tonight, considering what happened. One of them asks if the others think she would have come to her senses by now. The Crown Prince personally chose her, fully aware of the situation. One says that she is a perfect match for Lauren's flower. At that moment, Constance walks into the garden and greets everyone. The girls cheerfully greet Constance. One of them declares that she is honoured to be graced with her presence. Constance had come to see her sister preparing for the party and thought it would be wonderful to make some gifts of her own for the young ladies. A girl in a red dress inquires about the gifts, and then Constance pulls out a silver-plated flower. Each girl who receives a flower remarks that it is a tradition to give out flowers at a flower party. However, Since Constance is a married woman, the actual flower seemed inappropriate. She explains that a live flower can't live long, but it can be made into a charming accessory. Inserting the flower into her hair, she shows how it can be done. Seeing this, the other ladies also want to try to do the same with the flower. One of the girls asks if she now looks like Princess Constance. Constance replies that she will leave the basket of flowers here and offers to give them to all the new young ladies when they arrive. The girls thank the princess for such a nice gesture. Walking away from the ladies, Constance came upon 3 men. She hoped their companions were enjoying themselves as well. The men bowed and wished her the blessings of the sun. The young men inquired when the Princess of Arden would arrive. At that moment, she and Prince Isidore appeared in the doorway. The girls greeted the prince cheerfully. Isidore replied that the party was for them, the young ladies, and he was just enjoying the nice weather with his sister. Isidore reminded his sister that it was time for her to start handing out flowers. Ardina agreed, picked up a basket and began handing out flowers to the guests. A carriage drove up to the place where the party was being held, from which Estella got out, realizing that she was very late. Jürgen asked if she had flowers, and she confirmed. Estella explained that they wouldn't have arrived so late if she hadn't had to fight 2 girls over a wig. Jürgen asked her to keep her voice down as they were approaching the building. Once inside, Estella apologized for being late and wished everyone the blessing of the sun. People began to whisper about how the Crown Prince's bride could have such short hair because it was so indecent. Estella knew she would be picked on, but she hadn't expected such frankness. Jürgen asked if she would be all right, to which she replied that it was too late to turn back. Estella realized that at times like this, confidence wins out. As she walked past the others, she noticed that everyone had something to say about her and assured her that she would get to everyone eventually. Isidore greeted her eagerly. He was glad to see her safe and sound after everything that had happened. He remarked that it was nice to see her smiling again. Estella replied that she was honored to meet him. She knew they were enemies, and she saw no point in wasting time in a long conversation with him. As she approached Isidore's sister, Estella wished her the blessing of the sun and introduced herself as Lady Estella of House Arthur. Ardina expressed her pleasant acquaintance with Lady Arthur and apologized for her absence from the engagement ceremony, explaining that she had not had an easy time lately due to her health. Estella replied that Her Highness's health was most important. Then the man's sister presented Lady Arthur with a flower, wishing that she would bloom majestically this year. Estella thanked Her Highness for the beautiful gift. Noticing the note between the petals, the girl could not understand what Ardina wanted to tell her. It was their first meeting, and she decided to read the letter later, when she was alone. Smiling, Estella noted that such a magnificent flower deserved a worthy response. Therefore, she expressed her confidence that no one would blossom more majestically this year than Her Highness. Ardina gratefully accepted these words from the girl. Estella continues her walk through the beautiful garden. Along the way, she hears conversations about how courageous she is and how poor the prince is. She doesn't like this attention and can't concentrate on the note that Ardina passed on. Along the way, a young lady stops her and offers her a gift. She explains that it is from Princess Constantia, who left them for late guests. Estella thinks, if the gift is silver, it means that the flower is not poisoned. The lady remarks that the flower could be used to decorate her hair, but Estella replies that her short hair would not hold the flower. She politely wriggles out of it, saying that she can put the flower in her hat, and thanks her for her concern. The girl who gave the flower says it matches her hair. Estella thanks her, noting that she often hears about her good sense of style. But another girl in a red dress tries to insult Estella, saying that her hair can't compare to the elegance of the other ladies. The flower girl advises her to ignore Lady Therin, claiming that she is jealous of Estella's beautiful hair. Estella replies that she is not too upset about the state of her hair and considers it a hidden blessing, as it has allowed her to see His Majesty's true face. Estella feels lucky to have a man willing to risk his life to save her. She realizes that for years she's dealt with troublemakers in the city guard, and girls like that are no match for her. The lady suggests that they put the conversation aside and start exchanging flowers. She hands Estella Lauren's flower, confident that it will go perfectly with her dress. Lady explains that she knew right away that this flower would be the perfect addition. Estella thanks her for the gift. Estella says she brought Lauren a flower too, though she thinks they can't compare to the lady's beauty. She adds that the flowers are very beautiful. Another lady expresses her regret that she couldn't help Estella and gives her roses. Estella doesn't understand what they are talking about and wonders what exactly they are up to. She remains silent and watches the other guests, thinking that her presence might damage their reputations. Estella thinks that Isidore is also her enemy and decides that she should not speak to him. Estella can't concentrate on Princess Ardina's note as everyone around her is constantly gossiping about her. She has no choice but to say goodbye to her waist, feeling awkward. Estella sits at the table and examines the Lanadium fork, not noticing no reaction. She also checks the knife, but again sees nothing suspicious. Once she is sure she is safe, Estella decides to relax and enjoy her desserts. She notices that the other guests are watching her eat and feels their stares. A bee flies up to Estella, which is quite expected, considering the sweet desserts. The girl realizes that the sweet food attracts the insects, but as time goes by, she notices that there are more and more bees. She becomes worried and doesn't understand where they are coming from. Estella looks into her basket and is horrified to see that it has turned into a beehive. This causes the other women in the garden to laugh. They laugh and whisper as they watch Estella. The girl notices their reactions and realizes that they are hoping to see her scream or knock over a table out of fear.